Chapter 12:18. This giant tortoise was really arrogant. Everyone else came here to fight for the Heavenly Scroll's reward, but this tortoise actually planned to eat the Heavenly Scroll. Hearing this, the Flooding Emperor and the others' expressions changed. The sovereign Heavenly Scroll could be eaten? They had never heard of such a thing. They had never seen such a thing recorded in any ancient book. Even if such a thing existed, no one had actually tried it, right? The celestial force contained in the sovereign Heavenly Scroll was too great. Anyone unrelated to it would be heavily injured if they tried to get close to it, let alone eat it. What was the difference between a mortal eating a treasure? The supreme celestial force in the sovereign Heavenly Scroll's stomach would explode. At the same time, the sovereign Heavenly Scroll contained the will of heaven and represented the heavenly Tao itself. Eating the sovereign Heavenly Scroll meant going against the heavens. Therefore, even if a normal person had the ability to eat the sovereign Heavenly Scroll, they wouldn't rashly go against the heavens. Nonsense! You are such a hypocrite, you thieving tortoise. You are obviously here to fight for the Heavenly Scroll's reward just like us, but you lie and say you are here to eat the sovereign Heavenly Scroll. Do you think I will believe such a clumsy lie? The Flooding Emperor narrowed his eyes at the giant tortoise and snorted coldly. His expression was filled with fear because the giant tortoise's strength was too terrifying. A single burp could blow him and the 8 frosty Buddha tens of thousands of meters away. What kind of strength was this? Even if this giant tortoise wasn't an ancient great cultivator, it was definitely very close to it. Facing such a powerful enemy, the Flooding Emperor knew that unless he went berserk and completely destroyed his celestial nature, he wouldn't be a match for this tortoise. He had to be careful. What does it have to do with me whether you believe me or not? As long as you don't disturb me from eating. The giant tortoise was too arrogant. When it spoke, it didn't even look at the Flooding Emperor. It didn't put him in its eyes at all. It didn't even put the heavenly Tao in its eyes, so why would it care about the Flooding Emperor and the Flooding Emperor? Under the shocked gazes of the Flooding Emperor and the others, the giant tortoise actually opened its mouth and bit down on the world formed by the sovereign Heavenly Scroll. The giant tortoise was eating the sovereign Heavenly Scroll just like how the Heavenly Hound ate the moon. With this bite, a large piece of the sky map's interface collapsed into pieces and was swallowed into his stomach. The fragments contained unimaginably large amounts of celestial force. As soon as they entered the turtle's stomach, they immediately wreaked havoc in the turtle's body and exploded, causing a huge bloody hole that was like a rift in the starry sky to be blasted open on the turtle's enormous body. The gigantic tortoise let out a miserable shriek, appearing to be in extreme pain. After all, it was only a clone that had descended here, and not his true body. Wanting to devour the sovereign heavenly diagram without suffering any injuries was no different from a fool's dream. Not good. The Jinwu old turtle was really here to eat the sky map. This lunatic. True monarch North Sea was shocked, and his expression turned ugly for a moment. Like the Floodwater Emperor, he didn't believe the giant tortoise's words. But now he believed half of it. At this moment, the sky map world was destroyed, and the entire world was beginning to collapse. This was not an ordinary world collapse. Given the enormous amount of immortal energy contained within the sovereign heavenly diagram, if it were to collapse, the resulting shockwave would be enough to annihilate ancient cultivators. It hurts. But this heavenly map of Great Master Rain is really delicious. It was not in vain that I risked my injuries to take a bite. This is not a bad deal. The tortoise laughed greedily. He was obviously in a sorry state after being blasted by the immortal energy, but he was still laughing in his heart, as if he did not care about the injuries on his body at all. As soon as he activated his chi and blood, the aura force of the giant tortoise's enormous chi and blood immediately shook heaven and earth, shocking the Floodwater Emperor and the others. What an enormous amount of chi and blood! Even if the chi and blood of everyone on the scene were added together, they would probably not even reach 1% of the giant tortoise's chi and blood. One should know that this was just a clone of the giant tortoise. If its true body came here, wouldn't its chi and blood be even more terrifying? Ning Fan, who had seen many monsters with chi and blood, had the most intuitive judgment about the chi and blood of the giant tortoise. The chi and blood of this tortoise's clone is already not inferior to the corpse slave king. Therefore, the chi and blood of its true body must be even more terrifying. In terms of the total amount of chi and blood, it might be able to compete with the blood god Wu. What are the benefits of having an enormous amount of chi and blood? The benefits are just too great. Previously, when the giant tortoise ate the heavenly map of gluttony, its internal organs were all destroyed by the immortal power of the heavenly map. Its body was blasted with hideous bloody holes. Such injuries were enough to endanger the life of any quasi-saint realm expert. However, what about this tortoise? On the surface, its injuries seemed to be very severe. In fact, its chi was not in any disorder. Obviously, such injuries were almost insignificant to it. The giant tortoise's miserable cries just now were because its body was in too much pain from the explosion. It had nothing to do with the severity of its injuries. As expected, as the chi and blood of the tortoise surged, the flesh and blood of the hideous bloody holes on its body were reconstructed after a few breaths. No, it could not be said to have completely recovered. Compared to before, the appearance of the giant tortoise seemed to have changed a little. On its shell, there was an additional dazzling stripe. At first, the stripe was eye-catching. However, as its brilliance faded, it gradually became no different from an ordinary stripe. However, it was not an ordinary stripe. It was the Tao mark of rain that contained a trace of the power of the heavenly map. True Lord Beihai and 8 Frost Buddha were shocked. How could they not be shocked? There was not just one such stripe on the back of the giant tortoise. There were already thousands and tens of thousands of them. Although the two of them recognized the giant tortoise, they did not know much about it. In the past, when they saw the giant tortoise, they only thought that its stripe was ordinary. Now that they saw the Tao mark of rain on the back of the giant tortoise, how could they not guess that the other stripes on the back of the giant tortoise were similar? This was definitely not the first time that the giant tortoise ate the heavenly map. This old fellow had eaten countless heavenly maps or something similar to them. The wounds disappeared and its body was no longer in pain. The giant tortoise revealed an expression of enjoyment again. It opened its mouth that was like a black hole and bit down again. The stench in its mouth spread out and turned into yellow smoke that filled the world. Unfortunately, it did not bite the interface of the heavenly map this time. This was because its actions were stopped by the flooding emperor. Evil creature! I haven't even gotten the treasure and you want to destroy this world and force me to leave? It wasn't easy for me to find a chance to escape. How can I let you ruin it? The Floodwater Emperor was the first to charge at the giant tortoise. He pressed down with his hand, and the void of the palm of the water palm turned into a blue rope that wrapped itself around the giant tortoise's mouth a few thousand times. He was trying to stop the giant tortoise from opening its mouth again for a moment and a half. The giant tortoise, who was originally happy because of the food, was instantly enraged. He clearly said that he did not want anyone to disturb his meal, but the flooding emperor still did it. He was very angry. He was going to fulfill his promise and eat everyone here. But he could not open his mouth. So uncomfortable, so uncomfortable. What rope was this? Why was it tied so tightly? He was even angrier. Because he was too angry, the giant tortoise's body suddenly started to expand. It became even larger, doubling in size. This kind of enlargement was not a normal transformation of the laws. Its strength actually increased at the same rate. The strength of the giant tortoise's jaw became even more terrifying. He tried to force his mouth open, but because he used too much strength, the tortoise's face almost turned red. But the effect was very obvious. Under the tortoise's brute force, the void rope whimpered and began to break. The rope broke faster and faster until it was out of control. In just 10 breaths of time, the giant tortoise had broken off all the ropes in its mouth and started to curse. I am angry. You are the bastards. You dare to curse me and tie me up. I will eat you all. The giant tortoise's murderous intent locked onto everyone here. It opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of saliva that drowned the flooding emperor and the others. Compared to the giant tortoise's giant body, it was really just a small mouthful of saliva. But to the flooding emperor and the others, it was not saliva, It was an ocean filled with bad breath. It had a shocking corrosive effect. Impossible. My void rope is not something that can be broken by brute force. Just how terrifying is this tortoise's strength? Could it be that it has touched the threshold of breaking through with brute force? The flooding emperor suppressed the shock in his heart. Now that the giant tortoise had spat out a vast ocean to counterattack, he had to defend himself immediately. How would he dare to be distracted? The others were also affected by the giant tortoise's anger. All of them were under attack. Thus, they also needed to defend themselves. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's obviously fellow Taoist Water who has offended fellow Taoist Zhen Wu. Why do you have to implicate us and let us be spat at as well? Don't be afraid, Buddha. With me here, I will certainly not let Buddha suffer any harm. The Ba-cold Buddha stood in front of Ning Fan to protect him as usual. When the ocean filled with bad breath approached them, the Ba-cold Buddha raised its hand and summoned the 18 prayer beads in its hand. They turned into 18 gigantic ice mountains and stood in 18 directions around Ning Fan. As such, all the approaching waves were instantly frozen into ice. None of them could get close to Ning Fan's body. Seeing this, Ning Fan kept the sea-calming divine needle back into his sleeve and looked at the Ba-cold Buddha with a thoughtful look. Then, he shifted his gaze and looked at the giant tortoise with a hint of coldness. The one who provoked the giant tortoise was obviously the flooding emperor. However, the giant tortoise also vented its anger on Ning Fan and attacked him indiscriminately. The giant tortoise's actions had really provoked Ning Fan. Everyone came to bully him. Did they think that he was made of mud? Can I call you fellow Taoist Ba-cold? It was Ning Fan's first time speaking to the Ba-cold Buddha. He could communicate with all living beings. Even though he did not know the reason, he could see that the Ba-cold Buddha really did not harbor any hostility towards him. Thus, his tone became much friendlier. Seeing Ning Fan take the initiative to ask him, the Ba-cold Buddha immediately stood up straight and said respectfully, "Buddha, you can just call me Ba-hanzi. I don't deserve to be called fellow Taoist. I am not the Buddha that you mentioned. On the contrary, I am an ancient devil." Ancient devil? The Ba-cold Buddha was stunned at first. After carefully studying Ning Fan, it nodded its head. I see. Buddha has actually turned into a Buddha from a devil? The ancient people say that one can become a Buddha after laying down the butcher's knife. It sounds simple, but it is actually extremely difficult. For Buddha to be able to do this, I really admire you. Ning Fan felt that he was suffering from a communication disorder recently. There were always some people who could not understand what he said. Sea Sand Sovereign was one of them. Ba-cold Buddha was a second-level quasi-sacred realm expert after all. However, he actually could not understand human language. The Ba-cold Buddha was not an idiot after all. At this moment, he could also vaguely see that Ning Fan did not really like the way he addressed him as Buddha. The only thing he recognized was that Ning Fan's ocean-defying sword was real, and he indeed had the identity of a high-grade disciple of the chaotic Leviathan beast. Since the other party did not like being addressed as Buddha, there was no harm in changing the way he addressed him. After all, Buddha was in the heart and not in words. Forget it. I can trust you for the time being, right? Ning Fan said helplessly. Buddha, no, great immortal, if you have any instructions for me, just tell me. I will certainly do my best to fulfill it. This time, he changed the way he addressed Ning Fan to great immortal. I'm going to clean up the invading enemies. You, stay here and help me look after the things. After that, you can choose one of the 3 treasures except for the jade wine pot. It turned out that Ning Fan wanted to ask Ba-cold Buddha to help him look after the treasures behind him. The 3 treasures could not be kept for the time being, and they were ownerless. If there is no one to look after them, they would be snatched away by true monarch Northern Sea and the others in the blink of an eye. This matter seems a little... Ba-cold Buddha felt a little awkward. His true body was a second-level quasi-sacred realm expert after all. However, Ning Fan actually asked him to do something as trivial as looking after the treasures. This was not in line with his lofty status as a quasi-sacred realm expert. It was not that he was unwilling to help Ning Fan. It was an honor for any orthodox Buddhist cultivator to be able to help heavenly immortal Hun Kuan. However, he wanted to help Ning Fan with a bigger favor, and it was not something as trivial as looking after the treasures. Fine. Other than the jade wine pot, the other two treasures will belong to you. Since you can cooperate with True Monarch Northern Sea because of this condition, you can also cooperate with me. It's decided then. Ning Fan did not care much about the treasures other than the jade wine pot. As soon as he opened his mouth, he gave all of them to Ba Cold Buddha. He thought that Ba Cold Buddha was hesitating because the reward was too low. As soon as Ba Cold Buddha heard that, he became anxious. It was his honor to help heavenly immortal Hun Kun. How would he dare to take Ning Fan's treasures? Even if it's a gift from an elder, he would not dare to accept it. He knew that Ning Fan had misunderstood his intention. Just as he was about to explain, Ning Fan had already soared into the sky and joined the battle between the Water Emperor, the giant tortoise, and True Monarch Northern Sea. Ba Cold Buddha instinctively wanted to follow Ning Fan and protect him. However, Ning Fan asked him to look after the treasures. He could not disobey Ning Fan's order. In the end, Ba Cold Buddha could only let out a bitter smile. His 100 zhang giant body shrank to the size of an ordinary human. He sat cross-legged beside the three treasures and really began to look after them. When Heavenly Immortal is in danger, I will take action. I can't really ignore Heavenly Immortal just to look after some worldly possessions. This Heavenly Immortal seems to be just at the Immortal King realm, right? It's really too dangerous for me to join the battle recklessly. True Monarch Northern Sea was also spat on by the giant tortoise. With his abilities, it was certainly impossible for him to be hit by the ocean of saliva. However, he was truly enraged. At that moment, he no longer cared about snatching Ning Fan's treasures. He wanted to teach this detestable giant tortoise a lesson first. Old Tortoise Zhen Wu. Those who provoke you will be drowned in the water. Why did you spit on me? Do you think I'm a pushover? True Monarch Northern Sea flicked his fingers and sent out countless slashes of rain, cutting the ocean of saliva into pieces. Then he stepped on the rain dragons and rammed into the giant tortoise's enormous body again and again. The body of the giant tortoise was too huge. This led to a problem. The area that he needed to defend was too large. The speed of his body movement was also very slow. When the enemy's attack comes, he basically could not dodge at all. He could only helplessly endure the attacks. His tortoise shell was hard, but the four legs and the tail that were exposed outside were soft. The rain dragons specifically chose these places to ram into the giant tortoise. Every time it rammed into the giant tortoise, it would feel pain. With its enormous blood and chi, the injuries from the collisions were really insignificant. However, it was painful. The giant tortoise was furious. He lifted his clumsy giant leg, trying to stomp the rain dragons that were like small snakes to him. If he could stomp on them, he would be able to stomp True Monarch Northern Sea and his dragon into meat paste with just a stomp with his brute force. However, the rain dragons were agile and fast. How could they be stepped on by the clumsy giant tortoise? The feeling of not being able to hit a fly no matter how hard he tried almost made the giant tortoise's lungs explode. What made him even angrier was that the drowned Great Emperor was also as annoying as a fly. He kept creating giant palm imprints which made him groan in pain. Ancient Devil Sea Steaming Imprint. The drowned Great Emperor transformed into his true ancient devil form. His essence chi turned into a giant palm and hit the soft parts of the giant tortoise's body again and again. The palm imprints were obviously condensed by water element power. However, they were much hotter than many fire element abilities. Every time the palm imprints hit the giant tortoise, the blood in his body would evaporate and his blood and chi would weaken bit by bit. The giant tortoise wanted to stomp on the drowned Great Emperor. However, the drowned Great Emperor also had heaven-defying speed. How could he be stomped on? I'm so angry. All of you are hindering me. All of you are bullying me. I'm angry. I'm really angry. Titled Technique, True Martial Water Prison. The giant tortoise chanted and all the water energy in the world suddenly gathered towards the drowned Great Emperor. The drowned Great Emperor was a Water Palm Realm Great Emperor. Seeing that his opponent was attacking him with water energy, he immediately used his palm position to try and disperse his opponent's technique. However, he couldn't do it. In a battle between two Palm Realm Great Emperors, the stronger one could easily crush the weaker one. Although the drowned Great Emperor and the giant tortoise weren't Palm Realm Great Emperors, there was still a difference in their usage of water. He was the weaker one, and the giant tortoise was the stronger one. Therefore, even though he used his palm position, he could only disperse 70% of the water energy that the giant tortoise gathered. The remaining 30% still hit him. Once the water energy hit him, it immediately turned into a water prison that was 1,000 miles in diameter and trapped the drowned Great Emperor inside. Once inside the water prison, the drowned Great Emperor discovered that his ancient devil essence was completely sealed. He was also powerless and couldn't use much of his physical strength. He wanted to force his way out of the water prison. However, the difficulty of breaking out of the water prison from the inside was 10 times harder than breaking it from the outside. In a short period of time, he was trapped in the water prison by the giant tortoise. However, the giant tortoise couldn't kill the drowned Great Emperor either. The blood vapor on the drowned Great Emperor was too strange. He didn't need to absorb the enemy's blood to heal his injuries. Instead, he only needed to absorb the water energy in the air to heal his injuries. How strange! Although the drowned Great Emperor was temporarily trapped, there was water everywhere in the water prison. As long as there was water, he wouldn't die. The giant tortoise wanted to activate the undercurrent in the water prison to kill the drowned Great Emperor but realized that it couldn't be done. Forget it, I'll just trap as many as I can. Even if I can't kill the drowned Great Emperor, I can still kill the annoying true monarch of North Sea. The giant tortoise used the same trick again and used the true martial water prison. It gathered endless water energy and swept towards true monarch of North Sea. Seeing the water energy, true monarch of North Sea's expression changed as if he remembered something unfortunate. Then he sneered and let the water energy hit him as if it didn't exist. True martial old tortoise, you're still as powerful as before. You only used one move to suppress the primeval emperor's avatar. However, I'm different from the drowned Great Emperor. Your true martial water prison is useless against me. I'm too familiar with you. I know all your moves and I've experienced all of them once. Do you know that the same water element move can't work on me twice? However, true monarch of North Sea didn't move at all. He only muttered something, as if he was secretly activating a protective technique. It was strange. The true martial water prison was powerful enough to trap the drowned Great Emperor in one move. However, it didn't work on true monarch of North Sea at all. Because the rain dragon was too big, the water prison created by the giant tortoise wasn't a 1,000-mile water prison. Instead, it stretched endlessly and it was hard to see the end. However, for some reason, such a water prison couldn't restrain true monarch of North Sea at all. True monarch of North Sea seemed to be taking a stroll in the park. He rode the rain dragon and swam out of the boundless water prison directly. This scene was as strange as it could get. Seeing that, the giant tortoise sprayed out endless acid rain. The acid rain was made of its stomach acid and was much more acidic than saliva. It could even hurt a sage to be. True monarch of North Sea's title was no match for the giant tortoise's title of true marshal. Therefore, he couldn't avoid the acid rain and could only be drenched in it. The giant tortoise's stomach acid could even corrode the world of the sky map. It was indeed powerful. However, when it drenched him, it seemed to be natural rain and didn't hurt him at all. It couldn't be said that it was completely harmless. True monarch of North Sea's spirit was still deeply injured. The stomach acid on his body was too smelly. He remembered the last time he was drenched in stomach acid by the Zhenwu old turtle. After he escaped, he had to recuperate for 30,000 years before he recovered from the corrosion. Another 3 million years later, he finally got rid of the stink from the stomach acid on his body. This was the second time he faced this technique. He wasn't injured, but the stubborn stink would probably follow him for another 3 million years. Strange. Why is my technique ineffective on you? The giant tortoise didn't understand. True monarch of North Sea, on the other hand, was sneering. He had a huge advantage against the true martial old turtle after so many years. He could ignore the various water element techniques that the latter had used in the past. Today, he was going to settle all the old scores with this old turtle. As for the matter of snatching Ningfan's treasures, it could be postponed for now. Rain technique. Rain Dragon's Soul Striking Technique. As soon as true monarch of North Sea displayed his technique, the rain dragon under his feet became even more illusory and transparent, as if they had completely lost their physical bodies. Then they crashed into the shell of the giant tortoise. They didn't crash into the soft part of the giant tortoise but the hardest part of its shell? Is true monarch of North Sea crazy? The giant tortoise was stunned at first. Then it laughed arrogantly. It laughed at true monarch of North Sea's stupidity. It laughed that true monarch of North Sea's action would only cause it to bleed. However, it miscalculated. True monarch of North Sea's attack penetrated through its shell defense for some unknown reason. Then it went through its body. After being penetrated by true monarch of North Sea, the giant tortoise's physical body did not feel any pain. However, its true spirit felt a tearing pain. Obviously, true monarch of North Sea's method of penetrating its body was not aimed at its physical body or its massive blood chi. Instead, it directly attacked its true spirit. Even though the shell of the tortoise race was hard, its interior was the softest, especially its demon soul and true spirit. They were the softest and weakest parts of the tortoise. Thus, it could withstand true monarch of North Sea's attack. In this way, true monarch of North Sea managed to severely injure the true spirit of the giant tortoise with just a single attack. Obviously, he was not completely helpless against this blood chi monster. Roar! The giant tortoise was enraged. How many years had it been since it was heavily injured by anyone? With its boundless blood chi, it even dared to eat the heavenly map raw. Unexpectedly, it was severely injured by true monarch of North Sea in just a single attack. Fortunately, even though its true spirit was weak, it had more than one true spirit. The number of stripes on its shell was equal to the number of true spirits he had. I would like to see if you will kill all my true spirits first, or if I will eat you first. Titled Weapon, True Martial Snake Head. Even though the giant tortoise was not very smart, it was not hopelessly stupid. Seeing that its mystical ability was ineffective against true monarch of North Sea, it used its Dharma treasure, its titled weapon. Suddenly, its short tortoise tail extended like a snake and lashed towards the illusory true monarch of North Sea like a whip. Unlike the slow speed when the giant tortoise stepped on people, the speed of its tail lashing was as fast as the world's most turbulent water. How could true monarch of North Sea expect the giant tortoise to have such a move? He had not seen this move in the past and thus, it was rather hasty for him to deal with it. The other party's tail lashed out so quickly that true monarch of North Sea could not dodge in time and could only defend on the spot. As the power of true monarch of North Sea's title was activated, the surrounding area suddenly became misty and misty. In the misty rain, 480 ancient temples were faintly discernible in the rain. When the giant tortoise's tail swept over, those ancient temples suddenly moved forward and blocked the path of the giant tortoise's tail, attempting to block it. The ancient temples were smashed one after another by the giant tortoise's tail. However, those destroyed ancient temples ultimately weakened the power of the giant tortoise's tail. Every time an ancient temple was destroyed, the power of the giant tortoise's tail would be weakened a little. When more than 300 ancient temples were destroyed, the giant tortoise finally ran out of power and could not move forward anymore. What kind of defensive mystical ability is this? How can it block my power? The giant tortoise was shocked. Little did it know that true monarch of North Sea was actually more shocked. One must know that when he visited Nantian in the past, he had offended an ancient cultivator from his secret race. At that time, the cultivator's full-powered attack had only destroyed 300 of his ancient temples. This true martial old turtle's power was too terrifying. It actually had such power as well. Even though his avatar had descended and the rain temples were slightly weaker than they actually were, didn't the true martial old turtle's avatar descend as well? Could it be that the original body of the old turtle was already able to compete with some level 3 quasi-saints even though he had yet to reach level 3 quasi-saints? Again! The giant tortoise's tail swept towards true monarch of North Sea again. True monarch of North Sea wanted to use the same trick and reform the shattered rain temples to block in front of him. However, this time, the giant tortoise's attack was not just a simple tail whip. The tortoise's tail suddenly changed when it got close. A ferocious snake head grew out of nowhere at the bottom of the tail. The snake head flicked its tongue and had 2 snake fangs in its mouth. The snake's fangs were not ordinary fangs. The tips of the fangs shone with an ancient sword light that had been passed down since ancient times. The snakehead's biting speed was too fast. True monarch of North Sea did not even see clearly what the snake's fangs were made of. His 480 rain temples were already destroyed by the snakehead along the way. The wounds of the rain temples that were bitten by the snakehead were very strange. They were not like the 2 dots that a snake would have when it bites someone. Instead, they were cut vertically into 3 sections. It was as if the rain temples were cut vertically into 3 sections by someone with 2 immortal swords. Oh no! What kind of snakehead is this? It actually destroyed all 480 of my temples. The snakehead broke through the defenses of the rain temples and approached him in the blink of an eye. An unprecedented feeling of danger spread throughout True Monarch North Sea's body. He had a feeling that if he did not dodge, he would be cut into 3 sections by the snakehead. Rain escape technique. At the critical moment, True Monarch of North Sea used the rain escape technique along with his dragon, turning into rainwater and dissipating. This was the technique that Water Sect was famous for and was extremely suitable for dodging the enemy's attacks. Although he dodged quickly, the rain dragon was still bitten by the snakehead. 2 ferocious wounds were left on the dragon's body and rain blood flowed out. There was even immemorial sword chi in the wounds that could not be removed. It entered the rain dragon's body through the wounds and wreaked havoc within. Roar! This time round, it was the rain dragon's turn to cry out in pain. True Monarch of North Sea's expression was extremely ugly. His 6th dragon had not even stabilized and now, his 5th dragon was injured. His hatred towards the giant tortoise increased by countless times. The giant tortoise was pleased with its successful attack and whipped its tail towards True Monarch North Sea. The snakehead bit down. Now that it had transformed into a snakehead, there would naturally be another snakehead to deal with the enemy. His tortoise head could finally relax and eat to nourish his injured true spirit. He opened his mouth and finally took a second bite of the heavenly diagram world. Then it took the 3rd bite, the 4th bite. In just a blink of an eye, he had taken more than 10 bites, causing the heavenly diagram world to shake violently. When it shook, some of the spatial fragments could not be maintained and fell off on their own. This was the sign that the world was about to collapse. Seeing this, be it the great water emperor who was trapped in the water prison or True Monarch of North Sea who was being chased by the snakehead, all of them cursed in anger. If the giant tortoise continues to bite, this world would certainly collapse and no one would be able to snatch Ning Fan's things anymore. Humph! A bunch of trash dares to stop me from eating. You really don't know what's good for you. I will eat and sleep whenever I want. Not even the heavenly emperor can stop me. What right do you have to stop me? What right do you have to stop me? Now you have angered me. This time, not only am I going to empty this heavenly diagram world, I am also going to eat all of you. I won't leave a single one of you alive. The giant tortoise was extremely proud of itself. So, you also want to eat me, right? Ning Fan's voice suddenly came from the top of the giant tortoise's head. Unknowingly, he was standing on the head of the giant tortoise. You are that immortal King Realm Jr. who brought down the heavenly diagram? How dare you? How dare you stand on my head? Could it be that you want to poop on my head? You're courting death. The giant tortoise was enraged. It violently shook its head, trying to shake Ning Fan off its head. However, how could it do so? Ning Fan was like a tree that had taken root in the ground. He just casually stood on the top of the giant tortoise's head. However, he stood steadily. No matter how strong the tortoise's brute force was, it could not send him flying. I have always been fair in everything I do. Since you want to eat me, I will eat you too. I have eaten even darker octopus balls before. They taste really good. If you use this turtle to make soup, it seems to be very nourishing as well. As soon as Ning Fan's voice fell, Countless gigantic trees suddenly grew from the ground beneath his feet. The giant tortoise's head was originally as large as a continent. At this moment, the continent was filled with towering ancient trees that Ning Fan had planted. Those ancient trees grew in number and eventually, they covered the entire body of the giant tortoise. Looking from afar, the giant tortoise looked like a green cactus that was covered with fine thorns. "How dare you? How dare you plant trees on my body? Not good. Among the 5 elements, water is wood. The water element power in my body is being devoured by your wood element power at a crazy rate. Isn't this Junior the Rain Sovereign rank? Why do you have such a high level of wood element power?" The giant tortoise was shocked. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more they could see how terrifying Ning Fan's wood element power was. What level of wood element power is this? Wood Sovereign rank? Wood Sovereign rank? That's not right. Even the Wood Sovereign rank and Wood Sovereign rank would not be able to devour his water element power so easily. The giant tortoise no longer had the time to deal with true Monarch Bay High. It cast him aside and changed the direction of its giant tail, sweeping towards the top of its head. After all, Ning Fan was standing on that spot. This attack of his was going to attack its head as well. As long as it can kill or knock off Ning Fan who was on its head, it would not be a problem even if its head is destroyed once. Who asked it to have such a huge amount of blood and chi? It could instantly regrow its head. Ning Fan's expression changed slightly when his opponent's tail swept towards him. However, he did not dodge it. With his current strength, he would not dare to take the attack of the giant tortoise head-on. After all, it was not an exaggeration to say that this attack was extremely powerful since it could destroy all 480 temples of true Monarch Bay High. However, it was different now. He secretly approached the giant tortoise's body and launched a sneak attack. He planted countless trees of godhood on its body. The roots of those trees had already penetrated into the body of the giant tortoise. They were crazily absorbing and devouring the water element power of the giant tortoise, turning it into their own. Since the blood and chi of the giant tortoise was too strong, it did not suffer any serious injuries even though it was directly devoured by the godhood tree. However, it did not mean that Ning Fan's godhood tree was useless. Among the 5 elements, water was wood. It meant that with the help of the water element power, it could make the wood element power stronger. At this moment, Ning Fan felt that his wood element power was unprecedentedly strong. This kind of strength did not originate from his wood element power. Instead, it was because his godhood tree had absorbed the water element power of the giant tortoise. Under the help of the giant tortoise's water element power, Ning Fan's godhood tree was unprecedentedly lush and tenacious. When the giant tortoise's tail swept towards him, Ning Fan did not choose to dodge. Instead, he clasped both of his hands together. All of a sudden, the surrounding trees rose and condensed into thousands of gigantic wooden walls, blocking the path of the giant tortoise's tail. Rumble! The tortoise's tail that could easily destroy 480 temples of true Monarch Bay High could not break through Ning Fan's wooden walls. The onlookers were shocked. This is not normal. It's absolutely not normal. Even a cultivator at the Sovereign Wood Realm or titled Wood Realm would not be able to suppress a cultivator at the Sovereign Wood Realm like this. In the giant tortoise's long life, it was not like it had never fought against Sovereign Wood Realm or titled Wood Realm cultivators. However, none of them could directly devour its water element power like Ning Fan did and assimilate it into his own. Ning Fan's wood element was terrifyingly domineering. The suppression it exerted on water cultivators was almost one-sided. What kind of wood element is this? It's not the Sovereign Wood Realm. It's a power of a higher level. Could it be the true source of Tao Law? In the water prison, Great Water Emperor's face was filled with shock. It can't be the true source of Tao Law. Even a second-level quasi-sage like me can only use a small portion of the power of Tao Law. How could this young man completely master the source of Tao Law of the wood element? What this young man used should only be a small amount of the power of Tao Law of the wood element. However, What's even stranger is that it's impossible for a small amount of the power of Tao Law to cause such a suppression on water cultivators. Could it really be the complete source of Tao Law? True Monarch Beihai was unwilling to believe it, but he had no choice but to believe it. So this is the insignificant immortal king realm cultivator that I thought he was? He actually withstood the furious attack of the old tortoise Zhen Wu so easily. Ba Han Buddha, who was in charge of guarding the treasure, wore a shocked expression. He knew that he would not be able to do such a thing, but Ning Fan managed to do it as an immortal king realm cultivator. Is this the power of an immortal king of the chaotic Kuan sacred sect? It's really too terrifying. It's fake. All of it is fake. The power of my turtle-snake dual sword combination is not any weaker than a high-grade innate magic treasure. How could you possibly withstand it? I don't believe it. The gigantic tortoise swung its tail at Ning Fan again. The snakehead on its tail opened its mouth wide in anger. Its fangs were filled with overwhelming sword intent. Only then did everyone see clearly that the snake fangs of the gigantic tortoise were actually two treasured swords that were close to the high-grade innate magic treasure. The combination of the two swords was comparable to a high-grade innate magic treasure. This was the reason why the snakehead could easily break the 480 temples of true Monarch Beihai. Now that the gigantic tortoise was enraged, the power of the two swords skyrocketed. It could be said that the power of the snakehead's attack this time was 30% stronger than before. However, it still failed to break through Ning Fan's heavy wooden walls. This time, Ning Fan not only used the 1,000-layered wooden walls to block the snakehead's attack, but he also imitated it by producing the ropes of his wood element divine spark and tied the gigantic tortoise up like a wooden dumpling. The brute force of the gigantic tortoise was too strong. It could even break the void rope of the Great Water Emperor. However, it could not break Ning Fan's wooden ropes. This was not only related to the water element and the wood element. It was also because the level of the divine spark was far beyond the void sovereign realm. In fact, it was not just one level higher than the void sovereign realm but 3 levels higher. The source of Tao Law? It did not exist. The divine spark was not something that was worthless. Even the sage orthodoxies that were of a higher level than the source of Tao Law were still 1 level lower than the divine spark. In the past, Ning Fan's wood element divine spark only had the advantage of being of a higher level. Due to his insufficient cultivation base, the power of the divine spark that he could exert was very limited. This time, however, he continued to devour the water element power of the gigantic tortoise, using the latter's water element to strengthen his own wood element. This was an almost shameless way of fighting. However, it could make the gigantic tortoise lose its temper. Not only did he tie the gigantic tortoise up like a wooden dumpling, but he also used his ability to produce a wooden cage. Then he added another layer of confinement, trapping the gigantic tortoise inside the boundless wooden cage. Damn it! What kind of rotten wood is this? It's so uncomfortable to be tied up like this. I can't even break free from it. Not good. This is bad. I've lost too much of my water element power. I can't exert any strength now. I'm the dignified true marshal of this generation. Am I really going to be captured alive by a puny immortal king? This is simply a great humiliation. I refuse to accept this. I refuse to accept this. If you have the ability, remove these wooden cages and ropes and let me out. I want to fight you for 3,000 rounds. I want to eat you whole. I'm so angry. The gigantic tortoise was trapped in the wooden cage by Ning Fan. However, it could only curse and swear inside the cage. It could neither escape nor break free from the cage. There was nothing it could do to Ning Fan. As such, the Water Deluge Emperor was trapped in the water prison by the gigantic tortoise while the gigantic tortoise was trapped in the wooden cage by Ning Fan. The current situation instantly became extremely advantageous for Ning Fan. Among the enemies who came to snatch the treasures, true Monarch Beihai seemed to be the only one who was still alive and kicking. Putting aside fellow Taoist Ba Han, there are only you and me left in this place. We can finally continue our previous battle. Ning Fan smiled coldly. He leaped away from the gigantic tortoise and dashed towards true Monarch Beihai. He did not continue to absorb the water element power of the gigantic tortoise to strengthen himself. It was because the water element of the gigantic tortoise had already been sucked dry by him. It was already weak and powerless. Without a long time to recover, the gigantic tortoise had nothing left to absorb at all. I miscalculated. This brat's means are actually much stronger than what I estimated previously. Even if I summon all 4 dragons at the same time, I still don't have 100% confidence in defeating this brat. However, only 1 dragon came this time. Since I can't do anything, I might as well retreat for now. However, there's one thing that I must be careful about. When I retreat, I must not be caught by this brat's wood element. Otherwise, my water element will also become his wood element's nutrients and I will end up like the old tortoise Zhen Wu. At this moment, true monarch Bei Hai had the intention to retreat. He no longer hoped to snatch the treasures from Ning Fan's hands. All he wanted was to leave this place to avoid any mishaps from befalling the 5th dragon. He muttered some incantations, trying to open up a path to escape. However, Ning Fan just raised his hand and pointed at him, freezing him on the spot. His attempt to escape failed. During the short period of time when he was frozen, countless wooden ropes flew out from Ning Fan's sleeves and tied him up. Not good. I must not be tied up. True monarch Bei Hai did not know what kind of technique he used. He actually coughed out a mouthful of blood and forcefully broke free from Ning Fan's immobilization. After that, he used the rain escape technique in a dangerous situation. Once again, he turned into rainwater and dispersed, avoiding Ning Fan's attack. Ning Fan's control over the rain was not as good as true monarch Bei Hai's. Thus, he could not stop true monarch Bei Hai from escaping. However, it did not mean that the rain master position that he had just cultivated was useless. At least, the rain dragon could not turn into rainwater and run away in front of him. While screaming miserably, it was tightly bound by Ning Fan's wooden ropes of the divine lattice. Originally, the wooden ropes of the divine lattice could not restrain living beings at the level of the rain dragon. However, it could devour and absorb the water elemental power of the rain dragon. Under the absorption of the wooden ropes, the rain dragon's body began to shrink continuously. It was a sign that its power was rapidly depleting. The rain dragon wanted to break free from the wooden ropes, but how could it do so? Its power became weaker and weaker. In the end, it was also locked in the wooden cage made of divine lattice by Ning Fan. As the rain dragon became smaller and smaller, so did the wooden cage. Eventually, the rain dragon shrunk to the size of an earthworm while the wooden cage was also the size of a palm. Ning Fan bent his palm and waved it, keeping it into his storage pouch. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with mockery. He looked at true monarch Bei Hai who had reappeared. He did not say anything, but it was better than 1,000 words. True monarch Bei Hai's eyes turned bloodshot with hatred. He was obviously here to snatch Ning Fan's treasures. However, one of the 6 dragons was snatched away by Ning Fan instead. Now, even if Ning Fan allows his clone to leave, he would not leave. How could he let the matter rest if he does not take back the rain dragon? Little Ning Fan, this old man will give you one last chance. If you return the rain dragon to me, I will write off all the grudges between us. We don't owe each other anything in the future. If you don't obey me, you will become the archenemy of my water sect. True monarch Bei Hai said furiously. Don't say such stupid words. If you want the rain dragon back, show me what you're capable of. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. If he has to find someone among the people here that he must kill, he would certainly choose true monarch Bei Hai. You asked for it. Eternal true body, appear. True monarch Bei Hai took a step forward and transformed into his true body, which was 100 zhang tall. His aura instantly skyrocketed. His true body seemed to be different from ordinary true bodies. However, Ning Fan could not tell what exactly was different. Ning Fan also transformed into his 100 zhang tall golden flame body and rushed towards true monarch Bei Hai. As soon as true monarch Bei Hai realized that Ning Fan seemed to have the intention to engage in close combat with him, his aura instantly diminished and he retreated. He had no choice but to retreat. If they engage in close combat, It would be too easy for him to be ambushed by Ning Fan's wood element. If he gets hit by Ning Fan's wood element, not to mention rescuing the rain dragon, even his clone would have to die here today. Chapter 12:19. True Lord Beihai's primordial true body looked extremely old. His hair was white and his body was thin. Although he was 1,000 feet tall, he did not give off a mighty feeling. Instead, he looked old. When an ordinary person activated the immemorial reel, their physical body's offensive and defensive attributes would increase in all aspects. However, after True Lord Beihai transformed into the immemorial reel, not only did his physical body's defense not increase, it weakened instead. It was indeed strange. Although his physical defense had been weakened, it was a fact that his cultivation base had increased. And because of this, the part of his defense that had been weakened was all increased by the Rain Will's attacks. The rain intent of true monarch North Sea, who was in his true form, was so massive that it exceeded Ning Fan's by 60%. Seeing that Ning Fan wanted to engage in close combat with him, true monarch Northern Sea withdrew his body and flew backwards, maintaining a distance of 1,000 zhang from Ning Fan. Why did they have to keep a distance of more than 10,000 feet? Perfected Lord Beihai could not explain it clearly either. It was an instinct, an intuition. He was the rain master who was good at sensing. He could vaguely sense the danger within 1,000 zhang of Ning Fan. It was as if he would be ambushed by some kind of ability that Ning Fan had yet to use if he were to step within 1,000 zhang of Ning Fan. It was not because he was afraid of a battle of body techniques that he purposely did that. Seeing that true monarch Beihai still refused to step 1,000 zhang away from him, Ning Fan sighed inwardly. He knew that it was no longer realistic to use the cross-shaped halos to ambush him. Thus, he simply stopped chasing after true monarch Beihai. Instead, he activated the cross-shaped halos right in front of him. In this way, he could be considered to be in his strongest form. With the support of the cross-shaped halo, his mana was almost limitless, and no one dared to get close to him. Since Ning Fan did not give chase, true monarch Beihai also stopped running. He stared at the cross-shaped light ring with a shocked expression. He had expected Ning Fan to have some tricks up his sleeves. However, he did not expect it to be this strange halo that emitted a terrifying aura. This is the Saint Ring. No, that's not right. It's just a little similar. Sure enough, the area within 3,000 zhang of this child was a restricted area that he couldn't step foot into. Truly a terrifying kid. He's clearly just a celestial king, yet he actually has so many tricks up his sleeve. Unfortunately, this old man is not to be trifled with. Dao Soldier, Rain Treasure Vault. With a thought from perfected Lord Beihai, a huge rain door opened in the world. The interior of the rain gate sparkled with golden light. There were unknown treasures piled up like a mountain. It was actually a treasury. The treasure vault was none other than the Dao weapon that perfected Lord Beihai had refined for many years. This Dao soldier was not in the form of a weapon. Instead, it was an extremely rare Dao soldier. Otherwise, North Sea's perfected Lord wouldn't have paid so much attention to it and cultivated it for so many years. The treasure vault could devour other people's Dao soldiers and fuse them into itself. Because of this, North Sea's true monarch had schemed against countless rain cultivators and devoured countless rain Dao soldiers. At this moment, when the treasury opened, more than 10,000 Dao soldiers charged over with an overbearing rain of light. These Dao soldiers came in all grades. The weakest was an acquired immortal artifact, and the stronger ones could even compete with some innate low-grade magic treasures. A single Dao soldier wasn't much, but when tens of thousands of Dao soldiers gathered together, it really had the aura of soldiers devouring the world. Unfortunately, even though these Dao soldiers' auras were powerful, none of them managed to hit Ning Fan. As soon as these Dao soldiers entered the range of the cross-shaped halos, they would usually be frozen on the spot, unable to advance any further. Occasionally, there would be a few Dao soldiers that were comparable to innate magic treasures that could tear apart the body freezing technique and slowly advance forward. However, a large amount of their power would also be affected by the body freezing technique. When they reached Ning Fan, their power would usually be less than 1%. Ning Fan's cross-shaped halos had become even stronger. This was naturally because his magic power had increased tremendously recently. Even the cross-shaped halos had become much stronger. With the ocean-defying sword in his hand, Ning Fan only needed to casually swing his sword a few times to destroy those Dao soldiers that were comparable to innate magic treasures. Then, he breathed out a mouthful of flame-lightning sea fire. More than 10,000 weak Dao soldiers were burned to ashes in just a few breaths. What kind of halos is this? How can it be so powerful? With this halos, this young man has an additional layer of invisible defense. Within a range of 1,000 zhang, some weaker magic treasures can't even get close to him. More than 10,000 Dao soldiers were destroyed. They needed time to repair them. On the surface, these Dao soldiers were temporarily useless. However, as North Sea True Monarch chanted an incantation, the broken pieces and ashes of the Dao soldiers suddenly turned into raindrops. The raindrops spread across heaven and earth, forming a killing formation diagram that was several thousand zhang large. There were 9 gates and 6 platforms in the formation diagram. The changes of rain birth and rain destruction were hidden within it. Ning Fan's current location was the center of the killing formation where the rain destruction was located. Not half a step more and not half a step less. As expected, this person is full of schemes and is good at calculating. The attacks that seem to be harmless are actually preparing for the next attack. Ning Fan did not seem to be surprised by the appearance of the killing formation. His giant body of golden flames stomped on the ground. Immediately, a footprint that was burning with blazing golden flames was engraved at the center of the killing formation. All of a sudden, the great momentum of heaven and earth that the killing formation was rapidly condensed collapsed. Countless golden cracks spread from the center of the formation diagram to the entire formation diagram like a spider web. Eventually, it collapsed. A perfectly fine killing formation was actually destroyed by Ning Fan with just a stomp. North Sea True Monarch's expression became even uglier. Even a second-level quasi-saint would not be able to destroy that killing formation so easily. He could tell that the reason why Ning Fan was able to destroy this formation was not because of his own cultivation base. Instead, he had used some kind of special method to destroy the great momentum of the killing formation. He had broken the entire formation diagram with a single point. Being able to use the heaven sealing technique and also control the great momentum of heaven and earth. Could this young man be the descendant of the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor? However, according to what I know, the bloodline of the Eastern Sky Ancestor has long been cut off. It is impossible for such an outstanding person to be born. I wonder which force actually managed to cultivate such a heaven-defying immortal king. Could it be a secret race? When North Sea True Monarch thought that he might have offended a secret race when he offended Ning Fan, his heart turned gloomy. However, he also understood that there was no turning back now. Title Technique, Rain Swamp Technique. Rainwater suddenly gushed out from the place where Ning Fan destroyed the formation diagram. In an instant, it turned into a rain swamp. This technique was the last resort of the killing formation. Even if someone managed to break the killing formation, they would still fall into the swamp because they did not retract their strength when breaking the formation. He actually has a backup plan. How many steps has this old thief actually planned? Ning Fan's expression turned slightly solemn. He had used a lot of strength when he stomped the killing formation, and it was difficult for him to retract his remaining strength. His entire right leg had sunk into the rain swamp, making it difficult for him to pull it out. That rain swamp was definitely not something that could be broken free from with brute force. The more he tried to break free, the deeper he sank. In just a few breaths, half of Ning Fan's true body had sunk into the swamp. True Monarch North Sea seemed to be raising some kind of living creature in the swamp. Ning Fan could feel the intense pain of being bitten and sucked blood from his true body that had sunk into the swamp. That feeling was like being bitten by hundreds or thousands of leeches at the same time. Moreover, there was a deadly poison spreading throughout Ning Fan's entire body, causing his body to gradually become numb and withering. Withering? How could it be withering? True Monarch North Sea's expression changed greatly when he saw Ning Fan's true body turning into a withered tree. This young man actually did not use his true body to fight him. He actually used his clone. Impossible! Ever since I came to this place, this young man did not have any chance to change his true body into his clone. Could it be that he had already made such arrangements before I arrived? He has actually been using his clone to fight me. How arrogant is he? Unfortunately, the level of this young man's wood element is too high. Even though I'm good at sensing, I actually did not notice his wood element clone at all. True Monarch North Sea's guess was right. Ning Fan had already replaced his true body with his clone from the very beginning. His true body was hiding in the profound Yin world and was secretly observing everything through the eyes of his clone. Ning Fan was becoming more and more proficient in using his clone. If it was in the past, it would be very difficult for him to use his clone to display various abilities and techniques. Now, however, he could barely do it. Of course, most of the abilities that his clone used were not as powerful as his true body. Only his wood element abilities were on par with his true body. After all, he was a clone of a tree demon. No wonder this swamp of yours could destroy my clone. It turns out that this swamp is your titled Void Realm. The titled Void Realm was equivalent to the sovereign Void Realm of a sovereign realm cultivator. Including old ancestor Lei Zhe's titled Void Realm, it was Ning Fan's second time seeing this technique. This swamp was extremely powerful. Even with Ning Fan's tree demon clone's capabilities, it was still destroyed in less than 10 breaths of time. Even though part of the reason was that his tree demon clone was weak, it was also enough to show how dangerous this technique was. Fortunately, it was his clone that was attacked by this technique and not his true body. Thus, Ning Fan was not harmed at all. At the same time when True Monarch North Sea noticed it, Ning Fan's true body suddenly appeared. His giant body of golden flames wore a ruthless expression. The ocean-defying sword accurately struck the weak point of the swamp. It was because his clone had fallen into the swamp before. That was why he knew where the weak point of the swamp was. Crack crack. When the weak point of the swamp was destroyed, countless void cracks immediately appeared on the surface of the swamp. Even though it was not completely destroyed, it still suffered significant damage. Where Ning Fan's sword landed, countless divine lattice tree seeds were sent into the swamp. The power of the ocean-defying sword was not enough to severely injure the titled Void Realm in a single move. However, these divine lattice tree seeds were different. They greedily absorbed the water of the swamp as if they were plundering it. They took root and sprouted inside the swamp. Countless gigantic trees took root in the swamp and grew out from the swamp. On the surface of the swamp, they formed a towering forest. This was a battle between Das. It was a battle between a divine lattice and a titled Void Realm cultivator. A divine lattice was 3 levels higher than a titled Void Realm cultivator. When the two of them fought, it was just like a nascent soul realm cultivator bullying a vein opening realm cultivator. It was simply a one-sided battle. Moreover, due to the suppression of water by wood, this kind of suppression became even more thorough. The void of the Rainmaster, which could not even be damaged by the ocean-defying sword's weak point, began to collapse under the absorption and devouring of the forest of divine lattice tree. How dare you! True Monarch North Sea let out a furious roar and rushed toward the swamp. He raised his hand and made countless slashes of rain, cutting down patches of the forest of divine lattice tree. However, it was endless. These divine lattice trees had the titled Void Realm of the Rainmaster as their nutrients. Their reproduction speed was too terrifying. The time it took for True Monarch North Sea to cut down a tree was enough for the forest of divine lattice tree to grow another 100 or even 1,000 trees. He was completely powerless to stop the forest of divine lattice tree from destroying the titled Void Realm. He could only watch his titled Void Realm being devoured by the forest of divine lattice tree bit by bit. Moreover, as Ning Fan controlled countless gigantic trees to attack him, he had no choice but to run far away from the swamp. He did not even dare to approach recklessly. At this moment, the nature of the forest of divine lattice tree devouring the swamp was completely different from the water elemental power of the gigantic tortoise. The physical body of the gigantic tortoise was being sucked away. What was being sucked away was water elemental magic power. Even if that magic power was temporarily lost, it could be easily recovered as long as it meditated in the future. But what about him? What was being sucked away was the purest power of the titled Void Realm. It was the origin power of the titled Void Realm of the Rainmaster. Once it is lost, it could not be regained and one could only cultivate again in the future. Fortunately, he only came with a single dragon this time. He did not destroy the entire titled Void Realm. It was just 1/6 of the Void Realm. Even so, it was still considered a great loss. More and more cracks appeared in the void of the swamp. Eventually, the swamp completely dried up and turned into a puddle of dried mud. Countless strange immortal insects that looked like leeches crawled out of the dried mud. Each of them was panic-stricken. However, as soon as those immortal insects crawled out of the mud, they were pierced by the roots of the trees that also followed them out of the mud. Each of them was sucked dry and died a violent death. As a result, the portion of the titled Void Realm that true Sovereign North Sea brought was completely exhausted. Unlike absorbing the magic power of the gigantic tortoise previously, the Forest of Divinity this time actually gave Ning Fan a huge amount of titled Void Realm power. To Ning Fan, who had just broken through to the middle realm of the Rainmaster realm, this titled Void Realm power of the Rainmaster, which had the same origin, was a great supplement. It directly condensed 1/6 of the Void Realm of his Rainmaster realm. In addition to replenishing the power of his Rainmaster realm, there was also a little bit of the titled Void Realm of the Rainmaster realm. It was obvious that he had never cultivated the titled Void Realm of the Rainmaster before. However, at this moment, he had directly grasped a trace of the titled Void Realm power. Even though there was not much titled Void Realm power, they could be used as seeds to be cultivated. As long as they are cultivated properly, Ning Fan would have a great chance to cultivate another titled Void Realm on top of the Rainmaster realm in the future. Do you still want to continue fighting? Your losses will only increase. It's still not too late to escape now. Ning Fan purposely mocked true Sovereign North Sea to distract him. However, he was secretly coordinating with the general situation to seal the heavens and earth, cutting off all of true Sovereign North Sea's escape routes. Escape? Why should I escape? Why should I escape? You stole my rain dragon and damaged my titled Void Realm. If I don't kill you, I swear that I'm not a human. True Sovereign North Sea seemed to have gone mad with anger. His eyes were blood red. He roared angrily, saying that he wanted to tear Ning Fan into a million pieces. He raised his hand and slashed out hundreds of millions of rain sword rays. The sword rays gathered together and eventually formed an ancient divine statue with 3 heads and 8 arms. It was holding a sword in its hand. It was the divine statue of the Rainmaster that was summoned by the ancient god investiture technique. Fu Suchen had also summoned this divine statue in the past. However, what cultivation realm was Fu Suchen at? The divine statue that he summoned was far less powerful than true Sovereign North Sea's. The divine statue of the Rainmaster that true Sovereign North Sea summoned had the magic power of 18,000 tribulations. Moreover, this was the result of his divine clone descending upon this place. If his true body came, the divine statue of the Rainmaster could directly erupt with the cultivation base of a second-level quasi-saint. As soon as the divine statue appeared, true Sovereign North Sea immediately joined hands with the divine statue to attack Ning Fan from all sides. All kinds of rain element secret techniques were launched at Ning Fan recklessly. The cultivation base of true Sovereign North Sea's divine clone was at the quasi-saint realm. The divine statue of the Rainmaster was also at the quasi-saint realm. Moreover, the two of them had worked together countless times and they had a tacit understanding with each other. This time, their cooperation was not as simple as 1 + 1. With the smooth complement between their attacks and defenses, they would even have the strength to fight against a second-level quasi-saint. As expected, as soon as Ning Fan fell into their encirclement, he immediately defended more than he attacked. It was extremely strenuous for him to deal with them. It seems like Old Man North Sea has really gone mad with anger. He actually summoned the divine statue of the Rainmaster. Ba Cold Buddha's expression was incomparably grim. He knew very well how powerful the divine statue of the Rainmaster was. Seeing that Ningfan was being attacked by two quasi-saints at the same time, how could he still sit still and watch? He immediately wanted to abandon the 3 treasures that he was guarding and go and help Ningfan. However, at this moment, Ningfan's voice sounded. "Be careful. That old thief North Sea is on your left." Almost at the same time when Ningfan's voice resounded, the rain of heaven and earth suddenly gathered at the left side of Ba Cold Buddha, revealing the body of true sovereign North Sea. The true sovereign North Sea, who was working together with the divine statue, was accidentally struck by Ningfan's sword. He was slashed into specks of illusory light that filled the sky and disappeared. Illusory technique. It turned out that when true sovereign North Sea summoned the divine statue, he used an illusory technique to attack Ningfan instead of himself. Meanwhile, he secretly sneaked to Ba Cold Buddha's side, trying to seize Ningfan's 3 treasures. He purposely pretended to be mad with hatred toward Ningfan. In reality, he had already made a judgment in his mind. He knew that he was definitely not Ningfan's match today after losing part of his titled Void God realm power. In the end, he still decided to run away. Of course, running away was one thing, but he could not run away empty-handed. Ningfan seized his rain dragon and swallowed his titled Void God realm. Thus, he would seize Ningfan's treasures to make up for his losses. Unfortunately, his illusory technique could fool Ba Cold Buddha, but it could not fool Ningfan. Fortunately, even though Ningfan warned him, Ba Cold Buddha's reaction was still a step slower. He only managed to protect the heavenly Dao box and the paper pouch. In a hurry, he was sent flying by true sovereign North Sea's sword Chi, and the jade wine pot was snatched away. "I got it." After paying a heavy price, he still managed to snatch this jade wine pot in the end. As soon as a whiff of the wine fragrance entered his nose, true sovereign North Sea felt that his dried-up titled Void God realm power had been regenerated. If he drinks all of the wine, he might be able to recover all of his titled Void God realm power that he had lost. Moreover, he might even be able to improve his titled Void God realm power. "Old bastard North Sea! Quickly return the jade wine pot to me." Ba Cold Buddha roared furiously. Because he was too angry, he looked like an angry Vajra. He was not injured by true sovereign North Sea's sword Chi, but he was still sent flying. It was already too late for him to stop true sovereign North Sea from snatching the jade wine pot. He could only hope that he could make up for his mistake and snatch the jade wine pot back. Haha. True sovereign North Sea's complacent laughter was the only thing that responded to Ba Cold Buddha. How could he return the item that he had snatched? With the jade wine pot in his hand, true sovereign North Sea did not stay any longer. He lifted his hand and was about to tear open the hollow space to escape. Since he was frozen by Ningfan when he was escaping earlier, the divine statue of the Rainmaster that he summoned this time launched an attack in tacit understanding and entangled Ningfan, preventing him from having the chance to freeze him at all. The reason why he summoned the divine statue of the Rainmaster was not to kill Ningfan. It was obviously to prepare for his escape. His escape this time was perfect. As long as there are no unforeseen accidents, this trace of his spirit clone would be able to escape successfully. However, an unforeseen accident still happened. True sovereign North Sea wanted to tear open the hollow space to escape, but he realized that he could not do so. He thought that he had concealed his intention of escaping flawlessly. However, Ningfan still noticed him and sealed the heaven and earth in advance. That seal was not strong. If it was in the past, he would only need 3 to 5 breaths of time to break the seal and leave with ease. However, he did not have the time to break the seal now. As soon as his escape plan failed, Ba Cold Buddha caught up to him and entangled him, not giving him any time to tear open the seal at all. Detestable! Detestable! I was just one step away. I was just one step away from leaving this place. True sovereign North Sea was really angry this time. He had already lost his rain dragon and his void-conferred god realm was already injured. If he loses his spirit clone as well, his loss this time would really be irreversible. Ningfan is obviously just an immortal king. How can he be so cunning? How can he predict every step that I take? I really can't be careless when facing this old thief. Ning Fan inwardly rejoiced. Fortunately, he sealed the heaven and earth in advance out of caution. Otherwise, if true sovereign North Sea really managed to snatch the jade wine pot and escape, he would feel terrible as if he had swallowed a fly. Fellow Taoist Ba Cold, do you really want to force this spirit clone of mine to die? Just because of a young immortal king that you don't know, you want to form a huge karma with me? How unwise is that? As long as you let me go and help my spirit clone escape, I won't hold a grudge against you anymore. I'm even willing to give fellow Taoist a great gift after this. I remember that you have been looking for the 3 Eras Sirius flower. To be honest, I just happened to obtain one a few days ago. If you let me go, I will give you the 3 Eras Sirius flower. Isn't that what we both want? I can swear a Tao heart oath that I will never go back on my words. If I break this oath, let me die a horrible death. My body and spirit will be destroyed and my divine soul will never be able to enter samsara. Seeing that he could not escape by force, true sovereign North Sea tried to use a soft approach. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Ba Cold Buddha's persistence towards Ning Fan and his belief towards the word Buddha. The temptation of the 3 Eras Sirius flower to Ba Cold Buddha was not weak. However, how could he betray the Buddha and the Hunkin Leviathan for mere worldly possessions? Ba Cold Buddha let out a long sigh and closed his eyes painfully, as if he was recalling some past events in the mortal world. His expression was filled with indescribable helplessness. When he opened his eyes again, all his confusion had disappeared. There was no sadness, joy, anger in his eyes. He just remained silent and gave up. He attacked again and again, trying to take back the jade wine pot. What kind of demonic technique did that kid Ning Fan use on Ba Hanzi that he even gave up on the 3 Eras Sirius flower? In the past, Ba Hanzi did not hesitate to fall out with the current Dipankra just to get a 3 Eras Sirius flower. But today, he is actually willing to give up on this flower. Seeing that the soft approach did not work, true sovereign North Sea's heart was filled with despair. He knew that this spirit clone of his was probably going to be destroyed today. Perhaps the heavens couldn't bear to see true monarch Beihai die. The flooding emperor suddenly broke out of the Zhenwu water prison and escaped. It turned out that after the giant tortoise was captured, the Zhenwu water prison lost its source of power and became weaker and weaker. In the end, it lost the power to trap the flooding emperor. Fellow Taoist, your name is North Sea, right? You wouldn't mind joining forces with me to split these 3 treasures, right? A glimmer of hope at the darkest hour. The flooding emperor was a proud and aloof person, but he actually put down his pride and took the initiative to join hands with true monarch of North Sea. He had to let go of his pride. The suppression of the palm of emotion was too powerful. Even with the guidance of the sky map, the flooding emperor's avatar couldn't leave for too long. At most, he would have to return to his body after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. He didn't have much time left. He had to do something. His avatar could not be returned empty-handed. This was the chance he had waited for countless years to escape. When true Lord North Sea heard the flooding emperor's words, it was as though he had seen a life-saving straw as he rejoiced. It's my honor to be able to join hands with the ancient emperors, so why would I mind? Save me. Save me from this wooden cage and I will also join hands with you guys. I won't eat you guys anymore. Quickly come and save me. I can also make a great Tao heart oath. I will repay you guys. The giant tortoise also requested to join hands with them. In order to escape from the wooden cage, he had become shameless. He actually asked for help from his previous enemies. Both true monarch of North Sea and the flooding emperor had suffered a great loss in the hands of the giant tortoise. From the bottom of their hearts, they naturally wished for the giant tortoise to die. How would they be willing to save it? However, they had a common enemy and a common goal right now. While the flooding emperor was still hesitating whether to save the giant tortoise or not, true monarch of North Sea had already made his decision. Fellow Taoist Water, quickly go and save fellow Taoist Zhenwu. Upon hearing that, the flooding emperor no longer hesitated. He turned into a torrent that pierced through the sky and rushed towards the wooden cage that imprisoned the giant tortoise. At this moment, the eight-cold Buddha was entangled by true monarch of North Sea while Ningfan was entangled by the divine statue of the Rain Master. On the surface, there was no one who could stop the flooding emperor from saving the giant tortoise. Seeing that it was about to regain its freedom, the giant tortoise laughed heartily. It was extremely happy and even felt a little proud of itself. Everyone thought that it was an idiot. They all thought that this stupid tortoise would not lie to them. However, that was just an illusion. The great oath of Tao Heart? That's nothing. So what if I go against it? After he got out of the cage, the first thing he did was to leave the flooding emperor and true monarch of North Sea and run away by himself. He was really frightened by Ningfan's wood elemental technique. Now that he had finally regained his freedom, he did not want to take the risk and fight with Ningfan again. Of course, he would run as far as he could. It was funny that the two idiots, the flooding emperor and true monarch of North Sea, were actually deceived by his great oath of Tao Heart and were actually willing to save him. Aren't these two people even more stupid than me? Unfortunately, the giant tortoise did not laugh for long. Very soon he could not laugh anymore. Without knowing why, he suddenly could not move. Countless tree roots broke out of his body. Those were not the roots of the divine lattice tree. Those roots were actually condensed from light. A tree of light. No one noticed that Ningfan had already placed a tree of light in this place. It had cleverly merged with the natural light and fooled everyone. The seeds of the tree of light shot into everyone's eyes and into their physical bodies. Following Ningfan's command, those seeds of light began to grow and sprout at a crazy rate. The giant tortoise, the flooding emperor, true monarch of North Sea, and even the divine statue of the Rain Master were affected. Their bodies began to feel numb. Their magic power seemed to have solidified and it was difficult for them to circulate it. The flooding emperor's expression changed drastically. Currently, his physical body was numb and he had lost the support of his magic power to fly. Thus, he directly fell from the sky. How could he fly to save the giant tortoise? He could not even protect himself. Fortunately, he was not an ordinary person. He used some unknown method to forcefully suppress the seeds of the tree of light in his body, allowing him to regain some of his mobility. True monarch of North Sea was also in the same situation. Even though he also had a way to suppress the seeds of the tree of light in his body, he was still paralyzed for a while. During this short period of time, the jade wine pot that he had obtained with great difficulty was snatched back by the eight-cold Buddha again. He gained it and lost it again. He himself was even suppressed by the eight-cold Buddha under the 18 ice mountains. Amitabha. Bahan Buddha only heaved a sigh of relief after he regained the jade wine pot. He thought to himself that it was really a close call just now. If it wasn't for Ningfan having the light tree as a backup move, the giant tortoise might have been released by the flooding emperor. If that happens, it would be troublesome. He did not think that he and Ningfan would be able to protect the three treasures under the joint attack of the giant tortoise, the northern sea and the water-submerged sea. Bahan Buddha heaved a sigh of relief. However, Ningfan did not feel relaxed at all. Oppressive, indescribably oppressive. The air was so heavy that it was difficult to breathe. He had clearly activated the Tree of Light to launch a sneak attack, but he felt that it was even more dangerous. It wasn't that the sneak attack didn't work, but this time, the enemy was really going all out. Crack, crack, crack. The statue of the Rain Master suddenly lacked strength and could no longer be maintained. It turned into fragments of rain and shattered. The statue's power seemed to have been taken away by someone. Boom, boom, boom. The 18 ice mountains used to suppress true monarch Beihai suddenly collapsed one by one. Amidst the avalanche, a giant who looked like perfected cultivator Hai but was even younger walked out of the mountains. This was not perfected Lord Beihai in his old age. This was perfected Lord Beihai in his prime. This was the second phase true body of true Lord Beihai. An old man listens to the rain under a monk's hut, stars already appear on his temples. A middle-aged man listens to the rain in a passenger boat, wild geese crying in the west wind. Hee hee, I didn't think that I would be forced to use my second-level true body. Ning Fan, Baldi Bahan, you two are not bad at all. This old man originally thought that you would be slightly surprised to see this old man open the stage 2 true body, but it seems that you are not surprised at all. The robust true Lord North Sea sneered. In his robust years, his true body was no longer thin and weak. Instead, his muscles were strong and his entire body was filled with inexhaustible power. Under his second stage true body, true Lord Beihai's reign intent had nearly doubled. His cultivation base was only a sliver away from the second stage quasi-saint realm. Amitba. Who among us demi-sages didn't know that you had mastered the second stage of the true body? How can I be surprised? Although Bahan Buddha was not surprised, his expression was very grave. It was obvious that he was very fearful of true Lord North Sea's second phase true body. He also returned to his Duan 2 true body. Just as he was about to activate his second phase true body, his expression suddenly changed. However, this time, true Lord North Sea did not just transform into his second phase true body. His true body could actually become younger. His reign intent could actually become stronger. His cultivation base could actually continue to rise and was advancing towards the second stage true body step by step. You have actually cultivated the stage 3 true body? This is impossible. This time, the 8 Chill Buddha was truly shocked. Even in the true world, only a few talented cultivators could cultivate the stage 3 true body. It was as difficult as ascending the heavens for the cultivators of the true world. However, this true Lord North Sea could actually cultivate this body with his identity in the dream world. It would not be an exaggeration to say that his talent was heaven-defying. Under the stage 3 true body, the trace of true Lord North Sea's consciousness finally possessed the cultivation base of a second stage quasi-saint. His expression was extremely painful, as if activating the stage 3 true body was too much for him. Amidst the pain, there was also joy because all of his emotions were released at this moment. He had been suppressed for too long. He had been suppressed by Ning Fan for too long. Finally, he could use his full strength. Since Ning Fan did not want to let his consciousness go, he would not leave. Forcefully activating the stage 3 true body would bring a heavy price to this trace of his consciousness. He would accept this price. After all, he could not see any hope of his consciousness escaping. Since that was the case, he would give up on his consciousness and teach Ning Fan a bloody lesson. Little Ning Fan, today, I will teach you what a second stage quasi-saint is like. Boom! Before true Lord North Sea had the time to spout nonsense, a Tao mountain suddenly fell from the sky, smashing into him and causing him to spurt out blood. He was directly pressed under the mountain. Bahan Buddha was dumbfounded. Didn't they say that the stage 3 true body was incomparably heaven-defying? Why was it suppressed by Ning Fan as soon as it made its appearance? What kind of mountain is this? It can even suppress a second stage quasi-saint when he was careless. Does it really need to be so heaven-defying? Impossible. This is the Tao mountain of the sage. You still have such a trump card. You are despicable. I won't accept this. Below the Tao mountain, true Lord North Sea spurted out blood. He could no longer maintain the stage 3 true body, and his true body was smashed back to its original form. After all, he was not a true second stage quasi-saint. The stage 3 true body was still too much for him. Be careful. The source of the danger that I feel is not North Sea. Ning Fan did not even look at true Lord North Sea. His expression was slightly unpleasant. His attention was completely attracted by the flooding Great Emperor. One should know that when he was being chased by the Lord Ant, Ning Fan only felt powerless to resist. However, when facing the flooding Great Emperor at this moment, he felt a chill. The devil blood in his body was actually trembling in fear. What he was afraid of was not the flooding Great Emperor himself, but something else unknown. In the first place, Ning Fan did not plan to use the Tao Mountain to deal with true Lord North Sea. He was worried that he would expose too many of his trump cards. After all, he was just fighting the flooding Great Emperor's clone this time. In the future, he might have to fight the flooding Great Emperor's true body. Thus, he naturally needed to reserve some trump cards for emergencies. However, due to the changes that happened to the flooding Great Emperor, Ning Fan could no longer care so much at this moment. He had no choice but to suppress True Lord North Sea with a thunderous method. Only then could he spare all his attention to deal with the flooding Great Emperor. At this moment, the blood light around the flooding Great Emperor's body was fluctuating at a strange frequency. That fluctuation was too abnormal and evil. The flooding Great Emperor's eyes became emptier and deeper. That kind of depth was like a bottomless abyss of the Devil Tao. It was as if some living creature was slowly crawling out from the endless abyss of the Devil Tao. When the fluctuation of the blood light rose to a certain level, another voice suddenly came out from the flooding Great Emperor's body. It was a creepy laughter. That's right. That's it. Flooding, my good brother, quickly let me out. Quickly destroy all my immortal nature and use my power. You should know that you can't do anything by yourself. Chapter 12:20. At the moment when the creepy laughter was heard, the flooding emperor completely lost all of his senses. He raised his head and let out a shrill devil roar, as if he was suffering great pain. His 100 zhang large eternal true body pressed his 4 legs on the ground like a wild beast. The blood light around his body instantly increased by a few times. Its original dark red color turned into a demonic black-red color. The black-red blood light did not spread in all directions. Instead, it wrapped around the flooding emperor's true body like a layer of blood clothes. The flooding emperor's hair began to grow rapidly and turned white. Countless white fur like that of wild beasts grew out of his body. He seemed to have really turned into a wild beast. Even his ferocious fangs were growing out. He roared in pain and grinned greedily. No one could tell whether his expression was a smile or a maniac. It only gave people the feeling that he was going berserk. This was the second stage of the ancient devil ancestral atavism technique, ancient devil rampage. Stop struggling. Give me full control of your body. What's wrong with that? That creepy laughter came from the flooding emperor's body again. Get out. The flooding emperor's eyes were filled with madness. He muttered to himself almost instinctively, as if he was trying to resist the corrosion of the voice inside his body. He was losing more and more of his senses. Suddenly, a devil tail that was completely condensed by black-red blood light grew out from his back. As the first devil tail was formed, the flooding emperor's ancient devil essence chi began to skyrocket. His half-saint realm cultivation base rose to the first-level quasi-saint realm in one go. Moreover, it was a quasi-saint realm with 12,000 tribulations. One should know that the flooding emperor could already compete with the old turtle Zhenwu and true sovereign Northern Sea when he was at the half-saint realm. Now that his essence chi had risen to 12,000 tribulations, the pressure that Ning Fan felt was no less than that of the Northern Sea divine clone who had activated the third-level true body. And this was just one devil tail. As the second devil tail began to form, the flooding emperor's essence chi showed signs of skyrocketing for the second time. Don't even think about it. How could Ning Fan just watch the flooding emperor increase his devil tail and increase his cultivation base? In the end, he still made his move. He swung the ocean-defying sword in the sky. The semicircular slash seemed like it was going to split heaven and earth in half. It was aimed at the flooding emperor's second devil tail, which had yet to form. The water-drowning emperor was like a fool. He neither dodged nor evaded Ning Fan's attack. It was as if he did not hear Ning Fan's attack. Just as Ning Fan's sword attack was about to hit its target, the blood light around the water-drowning emperor's body began to automatically protect its owner, forming a blood shield that blocked Ning Fan's attack. Crack, crack, crack. The slash of the defying sea sword merely left a few cracks on the blood shield. It was unable to completely break through the blood shield's defense. As the crimson light swept across the surface of the blood barrier, even those cracks healed. Is the sea-defying sword not enough? How about this? Ning Fan's expression was as cold as still water. He kept the ocean-defying sword and threw out a true body devil fist. The ancient devil mountain-breaking attack rained down like a thunderstorm. 3,000 ancient demons mountain-crushing strike. Even though the defense of the blood barrier was strong, How could it withstand Ningfan's 3,000 consecutive attacks? It only lasted for 10 breaths of time under the rain of fists before it finally broke. But because of this delay, the Flooding Emperor's second devil tail finally grew out. Its ancient demon essence Qi rose to the height of 15,000 calamities. The Drowning Emperor, who was in second last form, was already much stronger than the North Sea clone. However, he still felt that it was not enough. He actually wanted to condense the third devil tail. Break for me! Ningfan, who had broken through the defense of the blood shield, finally managed to catch up to the third devil tail's formation. He fiercely struck out the ancient devil mountain breaking attack at the 3 devil tails of the Flooding Emperor. The defense of the 2 devil tails that had already taken form was too terrifying. Even the ancient devil mountain breaking attack that had 3,000 consecutive attacks could not leave a scratch on the devil tail. As for the third devil tail which had yet to take form, it could not withstand Ningfan's attack and was destroyed by him. Roar! The Flooding Emperor raised his head in anger and let out a shrill bestial roar. At this moment his rampage was stopped by Ningfan. During the Dharma-ending era, very few people knew that once the rampaging devil tail of an ancient devil is destroyed by someone, it would not be able to regenerate within a short period of time. The destruction of the third devil tail meant that the Flooding Emperor's rampage could only end here. The second devil tail was his limit. This person's destroyed devil tail did not regenerate. Ningfan seemed to have realized something. His understanding of the ancient devil ancestral returning technique seemed to have deepened. Unfortunately, the Flooding Emperor did not give him the time to think carefully. The destruction of the third devil tail had completely enraged the Flooding Emperor, who was in a rampage state. His bestial eyes locked onto Ningfan with immense killing intent. The essence Qi in his mouth condensed into a gigantic ball of light, and he actually spat out a devil flash at Ningfan. Devil flash. It was extremely similar to the Tribulation Flash and Barbaric Flash. However, there was a slight difference in principle. It was Ningfan's first time seeing someone use the essence Qi of an ancient devil like this. His understanding of essence Qi seemed to have opened a new door. However, now was not the time to comprehend it. He must block the Flooding Emperor's attack. Ningfan tried to use the ancient devil mountain breaking attack to block the devil flash. However, it was too hot. As soon as his fist light came into contact with the devil flash, it was burned to ashes. Ningfan wanted to evade the devil flash. However, no matter how hard he tried, the devil flash seemed to be able to turn and chase after him. As such, Ningfan had no choice but to face the attack head-on. He activated all of the power of the calamity blood in his body. He raised his finger and cast the Tribulation Flash, which was 10 times stronger than before. Boom! Ningfan's Tribulation Flash, which was 10 times stronger than before, could not block the Flooding Emperor's devil flash at all. He only managed to hold on for 10 breaths before he was completely engulfed by the devil flash. Hi, immortal! Ba Cold Buddha wanted to save Ningfan, but he was still one step too late. He could only watch Ningfan being engulfed by the devil flash, which could destroy heaven and earth, and being burned to ashes. Ningfan was burned into ashes that filled the sky. He was killed by the Flooding Emperor. Ba Cold Buddha's heart was filled with regret. He hated himself for not fulfilling his duty to protect Ningfan. If he had acted a little faster, he might have been able to protect Ningfan. However, everything was too late. He stared coldly at the Flooding Emperor, who was roaring continuously. He opened his mouth and spat out a golden Buddhist bead, which he crushed into pieces. That golden Buddhist bead was his commandment bead. What he was abiding by was the abstinence of killing. He was a Buddhist cultivator. He must abide by the abstinence of killing. Otherwise, it would be harmful to the Buddhist Dharma. However, today, he was going to break his abstinence of killing. Even if this clone of his is destroyed, he was going to give Ningfan an explanation for his death. That brat died just like that? Something doesn't seem right. Inside the wooden cage, the old turtle Zhenwu was not as worried as Ba Cold Buddha. He had been tormented by Ningfan, and he did not believe that Ningfan would be killed so easily. When the old turtle Zhenwu's gaze fell upon the ashes that filled the sky, he suddenly understood something. His heart was filled with regret. What he regretted was that Ning Fan really did not die. At the same time, he cursed inwardly. Of course, he was cursing Ning Fan for being despicable and shameless. How was that little thief burned to ashes? He clearly wanted to use the ashes to trap the flooding emperor. Even this stupid turtle could see through the truth. It was impossible for Ba-Cold Buddha not to see through it. However, he was just confused because he was too concerned. Soon, he noticed that the ashes that filled the sky were unusual. He could sense it, but the flooding emperor could not. In his berserk mode, the flooding emperor's strength had increased tremendously, but he had completely lost his spiritual consciousness. This was also one of the biggest drawbacks of the berserk mode of an ancient devil. In this world, there was no such thing as a perfect and flawless ability. The flooding emperor who had lost his spiritual consciousness did not realize how terrifying the ashes that filled the sky were at all. When the ashes fell on his beast body, they suddenly turned into tree seeds. As soon as those tree seeds fell on the ground, they immediately took root and sprouted. Their roots pierced into the flooding emperor's beast body crazily. In the blink of an eye, the flooding emperor's body was covered with tree vines that grew endlessly. Those tree vines forcefully absorbed the flooding emperor's water elemental power. In just a dozen breaths' time, the flooding emperor's essence chi was sucked dry. The flooding emperor lost all of his strength while the tree vines obtained great power from the flooding emperor's body. In the end, they grew into a gigantic tree that was as tall as the sky and suppressed the flooding emperor under it. At this moment, Ning Fan's body swayed and he reappeared. At this moment, Ning Fan looked very disheveled. His robes were torn and there were many places on his body that were burnt by the Devil Flash. Facing the Devil Flash's attack, Ning Fan used the same trick again. He summoned the body of a tree demon on the surface of his body, trying to use it to resist the Devil Flash. Even so, he was still severely injured by the Devil Flash. Is the flooding emperor in his second tail form already so powerful? If I let him summon 3 tails, 4 tails, or even more? Ning Fan's heart was filled with astonishment. He really felt a trace of reverence towards the flooding emperor's ancient devil techniques. What he felt was not reverence towards the flooding emperor himself, but the power of the ancient devil ancestral atavism technique. If I also cultivate the ancestral atavism technique to the second stage, will I also be as strong as the flooding emperor? No. That's not right. The flooding emperor probably didn't use the complete second stage of rampage. After all, I broke his devil tail before it was fully condensed. What made me feel danger was not those devil tails but the owner of that horrifying laughter. The owner of that laughter seemed to have wanted to completely take over the flooding emperor's body, but he was rejected by the flooding emperor himself. If the flooding emperor didn't reject this, perhaps he wouldn't have lost his spiritual intelligence. If he didn't lose his spiritual intelligence, he wouldn't have been subdued by me so easily. He could not tell what kind of emotion he was feeling. Although he had defeated the flooding emperor, he did not feel happy. The ancient devil bloodline in his body seemed to be dissatisfied with Ning Fan's current behavior. Ancient devils love to fight and they could not avoid a battle. Especially when both of them were ancient devils, they should defeat the other party in a fair and square manner. How could they scheme against each other? Roar. The flooding emperor who was being suppressed under the gigantic tree also seemed to be dissatisfied. He roared weakly and glared at Ning Fan. He bared his teeth and tried to bite Ning Fan, but how could he bite him? You are also an ancient devil? I have never seen an ancient devil as cowardly and despicable as you. You actually won by scheming against me. You don't deserve to be a devil at all. If it wasn't because Brother Flooding Emperor was against me, how could your clumsy scheme work? If I successfully climb out of the abyss, how could you be my opponent? What a pity. I didn't manage to climb out of the abyss in the end. Inside the flooding emperor's body, that horrifying laughter resounded once again. It was filled with disdain towards Ning Fan. Ning Fan did not care about that person's disdain. He was only interested in the person's identity. He asked expressionlessly, "You are not the flooding emperor. Who are you?" With your innate potential, you will attain the second stage of ancestral awakening sooner or later. At that time, you will naturally know who I am. Before that, I will be watching you from the bottom of the abyss, waiting for you to come. However, even if you come, the devil spirits will not accept you because you don't deserve to be a devil. Don't even think about obtaining the true power of rampage in your life. Devil spirit? Ning Fan frowned. He wanted to ask again, but the owner of that horrifying laughter did not care about Ning Fan anymore. He let out a cold snort and went somewhere. In the end, Ning Fan did not really fight against the owner of that laughter. He did not know if it was fortunate or unfortunate. The owner of that laughter was way too dangerous. If he fought against him, it would probably be unfortunate. I don't deserve to be a devil. But so what? Ning Fan shook his head, sweeping away the dissatisfaction in his ancient devil bloodline. His action of scheming against the flooding emperor might not be worthy of the title of an ancient devil. However, if he had the chance to do it all over again, he would still do the same thing. Knowing that the owner of that horrifying laughter was extremely strong, he still wanted to fight him head-on. Wasn't that just courting death? All these years, he had lived like this. If he had fought his enemies head-on every time, he would have died many times over. Yang Kai's demon path was not the righteous path of the ancient demon clan. His devil Dao was imparted by the old devil, and he was unscrupulous. It was not an ancient demon, but a black demon. Because of this, the ancient devil's cultivation had always been a part of his four elemental cultivation. It wasn't the main body, nor was it the whole. All the unhappiness in his heart dissipated and was replaced by the joy of victory. Shouldn't Ning Fan be happy? The Jinwu old turtle was locked in a wooden cage, the great water emperor was suppressed by a giant tree, and perfected Lord Beihai was suppressed by the ant lord's Taoist mountain. The three great enemies had all been defeated. This could be considered a great victory. How could he not be happy? Originally, Ning Fan thought that this battle would be so difficult that he would have to use the three clear lightning talisman. Unexpectedly, the divine lattice of wood would display its divine might in this place and crush all the water cultivators on the scene. In the end, he didn't even use the thunder talisman to wipe out the invading enemies. It was a pleasant surprise. I, Ning Fan, have a clear distinction between gratitude and grudges. Since you guys provoked me first, don't blame me for being ruthless. Under true monarch Beihai's resentful gaze, Ning Fan first walked towards the place where true monarch Beihai was suppressing. 2 hours later, at the place where the four great ferocious seas of the northern heaven converged, true monarch Beihai's true body, who was closing his eyes and pretending to be asleep, suddenly opened his sleepy eyes and spurted out a mouthful of blood. Master, what happened? Why did you suddenly spurt out blood? The immortal stone who was guarding at the side was shocked. Detestable. Detestable. This brat is detestable. My clone is so hard to kill, but he actually has a secret treasure that could refine my clone to death and eat it alive. This brat and I will not rest until one of us is dead. True monarch Beihai did not explain to the immortal stone at all. He was already drowned in anger. He wished he could immediately rush to where Ning Fan was and cut him into pieces. Just as he was about to make his move, true monarch Beihai hesitated. He regained a trace of rationality and did not act rashly. After witnessing Ning Fan's heaven-defying wood elemental technique, he no longer had the confidence to deal with Ning Fan alone. Even though his true body was stronger than his clone, how would he know if Ning Fan had used his full strength in this battle? He had already lost his clone due to his carelessness, losing his title and the 5th Rain Dragon. He could not afford to be careless for the second time. He must be fully prepared before he kills Ning Fan. At the very least, he must invite 3 to 5 of his good friends to ensure his safety. With that in mind, true monarch Beihai no longer condensed the 6th dragon. Instead, he stood up abruptly as if he was going to leave the water sect. Master, where are you going? You are still injured. The immortal stone was shocked again. It's all right. When I reach the Eternal Spring Island, Old Man Chong Sang will naturally heal me. It will be 1,000 times faster than me healing myself. True monarch Beihai snorted coldly and flew away from the 4 great ominous seas on a rainbow. He was going to visit his friends. Looking at true monarch Beihai's back, the immortal stone realized that there was one less rain dragon in his body. Even the power of his title was much weaker than usual. He was even more shocked. Who exactly is the enemy? How could he eliminate a dragon from my master's hands? Could it be some second-grade old monster? In the fourth devil mountain of the ancient devil's abyss, Great Emperor Water was expecting his clone to bring back good news. However, he suddenly sensed something and flew into a rage. His clone had actually been destroyed. Since his clone had activated its berserk mode, it had lost too much of its spiritual intelligence. As a result, it could not send back much useful information. As a result, his true body had no idea what had happened to his clone and how it was destroyed. He only knew one thing. As his clone was destroyed, his water sovereign position actually suffered a lot of damage and was weakened. This kind of situation had never happened before. Damn it. Damn it. It's fine if my clone is destroyed, but why did I lose so much of my power of the sovereign position? Could it be that someone used some heaven-defying method to devour my clone's power of the sovereign position? What kind of joke is this? Who is it? Who did it? I want to tear him into 1,000 pieces. Bah. Poor Great Emperor Water. He did not even know who the culprit was. He had lost his clone for nothing. It was too late for regrets. Inside the sovereign heavenly map, in front of the old turtle Zhen Wu, Ning Fan used the divine refining cauldron to refine the clone of the North Sea Sovereign Realm and the Water Sovereign Realm. The giant turtle was so shocked that he could not utter a single word. That was the clone of a second-level quasi-saint. It was countless times harder to kill than the primordial spirit of an immortal emperor. However, it could not even survive for 2 hours in the hands of this little bastard. How is this possible? What kind of demon cauldron is this? Why is it so powerful? I heard that you have a lot of true spirits. I wonder how many pills your true spirits can help me concoct. I'm really looking forward to it. Ning Fan took out a drop of 10,000 spirit blood from the divine refining cauldron and swallowed it. Then, he looked at the giant turtle in the wooden cage with a faint smile. The giant turtle sucked in a breath of cold air. It had seen many devils before, but it was its first time encountering someone like Ning Fan who directly used the clone of a quasi-saint to concoct pills. He is simply too cold-blooded and cruel. Isn't this bastard afraid that his devil nature will be too strong and he will suffer from qi deviation during his cultivation? When the giant turtle thought that its true spirit would also be concocted by Ning Fan and consumed by him, it shuddered. The turtle clan was timid by nature. It could not be helped. Thus, the giant turtle, which was incomparably arrogant just a moment ago, suddenly became terrified. I'm not tasty. Can you let me go? It had no choice but to be terrified. This time, his clone had brought too many true spirits with it. It was fine if one of his clones died. However, if all the true spirits that came with him were to die, it was unknown how many years it would take for his true body to cultivate these true spirits again. The loss would be too great. Let you go? Why should I? Ning Fan sneered. Ning Fan's tone sounded very cold. However, the giant turtle still sensed a trace of a chance to negotiate from his words. Instantly, it was overjoyed. I can pay the price. As long as you don't destroy my clone's true spirit, I can agree to any condition. Really? You can agree to any condition? Even if I want to devour the power of the title of your clone, won't you regret it? Hee hee. I'm already your prisoner. Even if I don't obey you, you will still devour my power of the title. What's the difference? A straightforward person will not beat around the bush. You just need to tell me what I can do to make you let me go. As long as your demand doesn't exceed my bottom line, I will certainly cooperate with you to the fullest. After hearing Ning Fan's words, the giant turtle felt a great pain in its heart, but it still smiled apologetically. Who said that this turtle is stupid? In the face of a great disaster, it was not stupid at all. It could completely understand the situation. Usually, it was just pretending to be stupid to confuse its enemies. How could a fool cultivate to the second-level quasi-sacred realm? What a joke! Since that's the case, I will be frank with you. I must devour your power of the title. After all, It has the same origin as my rain palm realm, and it can increase the power of my palm realm. I'm very interested in your turtle snake dual swords. That item belongs to me. I'm also very interested in your chi and blood. I wonder how you managed to cultivate such a level of chi and blood. Can you tell me about it? Besides that, I'm also very interested in the fact that you devoured the sovereign heavenly diagram. I hope you don't mind sharing your experience of devouring the diagram with me. Ning Fan smiled. The giant turtle cried. It seems like I can forget about leaving the world of the heavenly diagram unscathed without paying a considerable price. If I knew this would happen, I shouldn't have come here. It's too late for regrets now. You're not willing? If that's the case, I won't talk nonsense with you anymore. It's better if I concoct a pill out of you. Ning Fan pretended to attack the giant turtle. The giant turtle became anxious and hurriedly said, Fellow Taoist, wait. I agree. I agree to everything. Whatever you want to know, I will tell you everything. After hearing what the turtle said, Ning Fan nodded his head in satisfaction. He liked people who knew how to adapt to circumstances. If it wasn't because he was interested in some of the secrets on the giant turtle's body, Ning Fan would not have bothered to talk nonsense with it and would have directly killed it. Ba Cold Buddha, who was standing at the side, could only helplessly chant the name of Buddha when he saw Ning Fan's various evil deeds. Did I misjudge him? A real Buddha probably wouldn't act so ruthlessly, right? He thought that Ning Fan would first subdue everyone's divine clones and then persuade them with reason and emotion, using the boundless Buddhist Dharma to influence them. However, he didn't expect that Ning Fan would directly eliminate the divine clones of Shui Zhuang and Beihai. Moreover, he even threatened the giant turtle with his evil deeds. If it wasn't because he was sure that Ning Fan possessed the sea-defying sword, Ba Cold Buddha might have suspected that Ning Fan was a real devil lord. This heavenly immortal Hun Kuan's temper seems to be a little hot-tempered. He's very similar to me. Ba Cold Buddha barely found an excuse for Ning Fan and smiled awkwardly. Then, he remembered that he had also nearly broken his vow to kill for Ning Fan previously. His behavior was no different from Ning Fan's evil deeds. He felt extremely ashamed. For a moment, his feelings were mixed with complicated feelings. Amitabha. I've sinned. Chapter 12:21. True spirits were known to be difficult to kill. Of course, with Ning Fan's current magic power, it was not difficult to refine an ordinary true spirit to death. What was really difficult to kill were the mutated true spirits. They usually required special methods to eliminate them. They were extremely difficult to deal with. Ning Fan had once encountered the mutated true spirit of the Dragon Horse clan. At that time, the hearts of the 16 Dragon Horse crown princes were connected. He actually needed to capture all of them before he could kill them. As for the Dragon Horse true spirit, even the divine refining cauldron could not eliminate it. It was really shocking. In order to deal with the Dragon Horse true spirit, Ning Fan had no choice but to buy the complete explanation of the chaotic Kuan true spirit from the heaven-piercing cult to find a solution. Eventually, he refined the 16th prince into a pill and consumed it. His cultivation base improved tremendously. Mutated true spirits were just too rare. Ning Fan had only seen them once since he started cultivating. Today was his second time seeing them. Ning Fan had seen through the background of the Zhenwu Old Turtle from the very beginning. What he cultivated was a mutated true spirit. That was why there were so many of them. Child and mother true spirits. According to the complete explanation of the chaotic Kuan true spirit, a demon who cultivates this type of true spirit must first cultivate a strong mother spirit. Then, the mother spirit would give birth to tens of thousands of child spirits. On the day of success, if the child spirits did not die, the mother spirit would not be destroyed. If the mother spirit did not die, the child spirits would not really die even if they die. They could still return to their true bodies and be resurrected after a long period of cultivation. The Zhenwu Old Turtle came here with his clone. His mother spirit had not arrived yet. Thus, he only brought a few thousand child spirits with him. With Ning Fan's current magic power, it was not impossible to refine these few thousand child spirits to death. However, it would not be easy either. It would take him at least a few hundred years to refine them. Besides, these child spirits would not really die. Even if he refines all of them to death, he would not be able to refine a drop of 10,000 spirit blood. Spending a few hundred years without any results was certainly not a bad deal for him. It was more practical to let this turtle go in exchange for something useful. Life was like a drama. It all depended on one's acting skills. Ning Fan refined the clone of the North Sea and the water in front of the giant turtle. However, he was just trying to scare it. In fact, he could not do anything to it. What was funny was that the turtle did not know the details of the divine refining cauldron. Thus, it became cowardly as soon as it scared him. Ning Fan found this scene to be quite interesting. It would be great if I could take this old tortoise as a pet. It would make a good pair with old Wu Ba. Forget it. This old tortoise's true body is too strong. Moreover, his true body hasn't arrived yet. Even if his true body comes, I won't be able to do it with my current strength. Ning Fan's thoughts were racing. His eyes that were looking at the giant tortoise had a hint of a smile. For some reason, the tortoise felt a chill on its shell. Somehow, it felt that Ning Fan's smile was a little malicious. Inwardly, it made up its mind. As long as I can escape today, I will definitely avoid this little thief in the future. This thief's with elemental power is just too terrifying. After the gigantic tortoise paid a huge price, Ning Fan finally opened the wooden cage and released the spirit clone of the gigantic tortoise. Looking at the giant tortoise's clumsy manner, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with even more joy. The 8 frigid Hell Buddha also had the same smile on his face. If Ning Fan also kills the old turtle Zhen Wu, he would really misunderstand Ning Fan as a devil lord. Luckily, Ning Fan finally found his conscience and let the old tortoise go. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Repent and you will be saved. Repent and you will become a Buddha on the spot. It seems like this high immortal can still be saved? This matter is over. It's time for me to take my leave. As soon as the gigantic tortoise left, the 8 frigid Hell Buddha bid farewell to Ning Fan. Of course, before he left, he had to return the 3 treasures that he had been guarding to Ning Fan. That was what he had done. Ning Fan did not know whether to laugh or cry. Fellow Taoist, what do you mean? I've told you before that other than the jade wine pot, the other 2 items will belong to you. In today's battle, I didn't contribute much and I already feel ashamed. If I accept High Immortal's reward, I'm afraid I really won't have the face to return to the Western Paradise. If High Immortal really feels that you owe me something, why don't you pay a visit to the Western Paradise some other day and tell me about the high-grade Dharma of the Chaotic Kun sacred sect? The 8 frigid Hell Buddha suddenly changed the topic and made a request. After hearing his request, Ning Fan smiled bitterly. High-grade Dharma of the Chaotic Kun sacred sect? To be honest, I don't know anything about Dharma, let alone the high-grade Dharma of the Chaotic Kun sacred sect. High Immortal is really humble. The 8 frigid Hell Buddha did not care whether Ning Fan really did not know anything about Dharma or not. It was fine if Ning Fan did not know anything about Dharma because he did. When Ning Fan keeps his promise and goes to the Western Paradise next time, he would definitely save him properly and use his supreme Dharma to change him back to the righteous path. No matter what, he could not sit and watch an High Immortal of the Chaotic Kun sacred sect fall into the abyss of the devil path. Without giving Ning Fan the chance to refuse, the 8 frigid Hell Buddha took his leave again. He tore open the void and left the world of the heavenly diagram. Now that things had developed to this stage, Ning Fan also felt a huge headache. He would rather give 8 frigid Hell Buddha 2 gifts than go to the Western Paradise to talk about Dharma. He was a good devil cultivator. Why would he talk about Dharma? If his devil heart was damaged before he could finish talking about Dharma, it would really be a great loss for him. Unfortunately, the 8 frigid Hell Buddha did not even give him a chance to refuse. Wasn't this forcing him to do something he didn't want to do? Either way, it was a one-sided agreement made by the 8 frigid Hell Buddha. Ning Fan did not agree to anything either. Thus, he did not really have to do this. Forget it. If I have the chance to go to the Western Paradise, I'll look for some other things and give them to this person to end today's karma. It's better not to talk about Dharma. Ning Fan let out a sigh. Then, he began to observe the world of the heavenly diagram again. Everyone's divine senses were either dead or gone. Ning Fan was the only one left in this world. He had already obtained the 3 treasures. Logically speaking, there was no longer any meaning for him to stay here any longer. However, he was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged in this world unhurriedly and began to cultivate. A few days later, an illusory star appeared in Ning Fan's right eye. With the power of the Water Sovereign that he devoured from the Great Water Sovereign, Ning Fan officially activated the cultivation of Water Yin Yang. The Water Yin Yang was classified into the Devil Yin Yang in his right eye. Since this was not a conventional cultivation method, the condensation of the Water Yin Yang was not complete. He still needed a large amount of fierce element crystals to cultivate before he could officially cultivate the Water Yin Yang. A few more days passed. Another illusory star appeared in Ning Fan's left eye. Using the small amount of true martial title that he had devoured, Ning Fan cultivated the true martial Yin Yang. However, it was also not complete. He would need a large amount of cultivation to truly condense it. Another 10 days passed. Ning Fan completely absorbed the small amount of Rain Sovereign's power that he had devoured. Then he drank all the immortal wine in the jade wine pot. After doing all this, the power of Ning Fan's Rain Sovereign skyrocketed by more than 50%. It was completely unlike the power that a person who had just cultivated the Rain Sovereign possessed. Yu Long prostrated himself in front of Ning Fan, not even daring to breathe loudly. Ning Fan's Rain Sovereign was too powerful. For the first time, Yu Long felt an oppressive aura that was no less than that of his master, true monarch Northern Sea. This unlucky Yu Long was the one that Ning Fan had captured. In order to truly subdue this Yu Long, he released this dragon. Because of this, Yu Long could clearly feel Ning Fan's increasingly powerful rain intent as it stood beside Ning Fan. It instinctively wanted to submit to Ning Fan's power. However, its loyalty to true monarch Northern Sea that was ingrained in its bones did not allow it to do so. "Are you willing to follow me?" Suddenly, Ning Fan opened his mouth and asked Yu Long. Yu Long trembled and hesitated. It knew that as long as it nods its head, it would be able to survive. However, it could not bring itself to do so no matter what. Survive? That kind of thing was actually not important to it. It was not a living being in the first place. It was just a part of true monarch Northern Sea's ability. To it, life and death were never important. The only important thing was its master. Only through its master, roared at Wai Yu Long answered Ning Fan with his actions. With the horns of the rain dragon on its head, it unleashed all of its abilities and charged headfirst at Ning Fan. It launched a sneak attack. While Ning Fan was distracted by his question, it finally mustered its courage and launched an attack at Ning Fan, hoping to kill him in a single blow. "Is this your answer?" Ning Fan's eyes did not have the anger of being ambushed. Instead, there was only pity and sympathy. In the end, all of his pity and sympathy turned into ruthlessness. He easily blocked Yu Long's sneak attack and restrained it with his divine lattice of wood. This time, he no longer showed any mercy. Instead, he activated the power of his divine lattice to devour and kill Yu Long completely. The entire killing process lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, Ning Fan opened his palm and activated his rain palm position. The rain intent of heaven and earth instantly gathered at the center of his palm and formed an illusory rain dragon. It was not the rain dragon of true monarch Northern Sea. Instead, it was the rain dragon that Ning Fan cultivated after devouring his opponent's rain dragon. It was not a living being but a divine ability. "It's a pity that you followed the wrong master." Looking at the rain dragon in his hand, Ning Fan sighed softly. This dragon was not the previous one after all. He admired the loyalty of that dragon, but he could not use it in the end. When he closed his palm, the rain dragon turned into rainwater and flowed through his fingers. Then he patted his storage pouch. 2 illusory shadows of a turtle and a snake suddenly flew out from the pouch and circled around Ning Fan's body. Then, the illusory shadows of the turtle and snake transformed into 2 bone-toothed flying swords that emitted the chi of the sea. These two bone-tooth swords were the strongest treasured swords among the mid-grade innate magic treasures. When the two swords were used at the same time, they could fight against high-grade innate magic treasures. They were extremely powerful. They were the turtle-snake dual swords that he snatched from the giant turtle. No, it was not accurate to call them the turtle-snake dual swords. They were actually the titled weapons of the true martial titled cultivators, true martial broken sword. Ning Fan did not attach much importance to magic treasures. However, magic treasures that had reached high-grade innate magic treasures would be an exception. A magic treasure of this level could greatly increase his combat power. With this treasure, he would have a hint of confidence even when facing the true body of a second-level quasi-saint. Good sword. It's just that it's a little cowardly and slippery. It's too similar to your previous master. This is not good. Ning Fan praised the true martial broken sword and criticized it at the same time. Tortoise sword, master's criticism is right. Snake sword, master's criticism is reasonable. Tortoise sword, master will enjoy immortal happiness forever. Snake sword, master will live as long as the heavens. As soon as the connection was established, Ning Fan could easily hear the flattering voice of the true martial broken sword. These two swords are really interesting. They actually know how to flatter their master. Their intelligence is really high. From today onwards, the two of you are my swords. It's common for magic treasures to change owners in the cultivation world. Since you're with me, you can forget about your previous master. Ning Fan said again. Tortoise sword, previous master? That cowardly old tortoise is not my master. Snake sword, from today onwards, I will only recognize Lord Ning Fan as my master. Tortoise sword, master is so handsome. You're the most handsome man in the history of true martial realm. Snake sword, master is looking at me. He's looking at me. He must like me. Tortoise sword, nonsense. I'm the one that master likes. Snake sword, how dare you? How dare you snatch master from me? Tortoise sword, I'll cut you. Snake sword, I'll cut you. Ding ding ding. Dang dang dang. The tortoise sword and snake sword actually fought each other in order to snatch Ning Fan. Ning Fan was so embarrassed that he was speechless. Did the two female flying swords fall in love with him? Did they fall in love with each other so much that they became enemies? Cough cough cough. Why didn't anyone tell him that these two swords were female? Isn't it normal for two swords to have one male and one female? Ning Fan waved his hand and stopped the fight between the two swords. Previously, he thought that these two swords had high spirituality and were very interesting. Now, however, he felt a headache. If these two swords suddenly abandon their enemies and fight on their own when facing enemies in the future, Ning Fan would be in danger. It seems like these two swords still need some time to get used to each other before they can be put to good use. Ning Fan kept the two swords and checked the other two rewards of the heavenly map. Among the 3 rewards of the heavenly map, he had already drunk all the immortal wine in the jade wine pot. Only the heavenly Dao box and the paper bag were left unopened. Ning Fan first opened the paper bag. Inside the paper bag was a drawing made of animal skin. The paper was yellowed. It was unknown how long it had been there. However, there was still a faint smell of ink lingering in his nose. Between the ink stains, there was demonic chi of the 3rd step. Obviously, this drawing was drawn by an unknown saint of the demon race. Ning Fan recognized the words on the drawing. It was the ancient demon language. Below the description of the words, there was a drawing of the skeleton of a huge fish. Countless heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures were cast on the fish bones. The weak fish bones were forcefully refined into an extremely powerful magic treasure. Each of the fish bones seemed to have turned into an innate treasure sword. So it's the bone sword forging drawing of the Flying Sting clan. The fish demons of this clan like to forge their own fish bones into innate flying swords. When they fight against their enemies, their bone swords are really powerful. Unfortunately, you're not a fish demon. This forging drawing is useless to you. Seeing that Ning Fan had opened a useless item, the Ant Lord was instantly overjoyed. Ning Fan was speechless. He forgot to block out the Ant Lord's noise due to a moment of carelessness, and this fellow began to clamor again. How annoying! Seeing that the drawing was useless, Ning Fan casually kept it and opened the heavenly Dao box. As soon as he opened it, the shining light of fortune in the box made him unable to open his eyes. After a long time, the light of fortune faded a little. Only then did Ning Fan see what was inside the box. It was a purple ore that was engraved with heavenly Dao lines. The shape of the ore was like a baby who was sitting cross-legged in meditation. What kind of ore is this? Ning Fan asked the Ant Lord. After all, the Ant Lord was a saint who had vast knowledge and experience. It's actually the absolute fusion stone. Little ant, your luck isn't bad. The Ant Lord gritted her teeth unwillingly. Her tone was as sour as it could be. Since Ning Fan was lucky this time, she became unhappy. Absolute fusion stone? Ning Fan raised his eyebrows, but he did not ask the Ant Lord what it was. His mind was connected with the Ant Lord. As soon as the Ant Lord thought of this item, he could read all the information about it from her mind. The Absolute Fusion Stone. It was a unique ore that was ranked 39th among all the absolute fusion ores in the true world. It was the key material to synthesize high-grade innate magic treasures. In the true world, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to forge a high-grade innate magic treasure. Even those third-step refinement masters had a success rate of less than 1 in 1,000. In other words, a high-grade innate magic treasure would need to be refined more than 1,000 times in order to succeed. Moreover, that was the success rate of a top-grade Grand Master Refinement Master. Refining a high-grade innate magic treasure once would require countless immortal materials and an endless amount of time. When the consumption rate was increased to 1,000 times, even a saint would not be willing to attempt it recklessly. This was the reason why high-grade innate magic treasures were rare. It was too difficult to obtain high-grade innate magic treasures through the process of refinement. Thus, the cultivators of the true world found another way to obtain this item. That was through synthesis. With the help of a special synthesis formation and the absolute fusion stone and many other immortal materials, the cultivators of the true world could synthesize several mid-grade innate magic treasures into a high-grade innate magic treasure. Of course, the failure rate of this synthesis was not low. Similarly, if one had several high-grade innate magic treasures, he could also try to synthesize a supreme-grade innate magic treasure. However, the failure rate would be much higher and the amount of absolute fusion stones needed would also be much higher. This stone can help me synthesize a supreme-grade innate magic treasure? Ning Fan was very tempted. If he had a supreme-grade innate magic treasure, he would even dare to challenge ancient great cultivators. Dream on. You only have a fusion stone. You can't synthesize a supreme-grade innate magic treasure, alright. A single fusion stone is only enough to synthesize a high-grade innate magic treasure. The Ant Lord mocked. It's not bad to synthesize a high-grade innate magic treasure. I already have the broken true martial sword, which is comparable to a high-grade innate magic treasure. If I synthesize another one, I will have 2 of them. When I face my enemies, I will have a great chance of winning even if I have to face the Rain Master himself with 2 high-grade innate magic treasures. Ning Fan was very optimistic. It's not that I want to discourage you, but you are thinking too simply about the matter of synthesis. Putting aside the fact that the failure rate is extremely high, the timing, location, luck, and manpower are all indispensable. Moreover, it's impossible for you to obtain the innate synthesis formation. That is a secret formation of the ancient sacred sect of the true world. Even in the ancient sacred sect, not everyone is qualified to know about this formation. You don't even know about the formation and you actually want to synthesize magic treasures. What wishful thinking! I don't know about the formation, but you do. Isn't that enough? As a saint of the Hongjun sacred sect, you must know about this formation. Ning Fan said smilingly. Of course I know about it. But why should I tell you? Damn it. The Ant Lord gritted her teeth in anger. She really hated this kind of mental connection. Does it matter whether she tells Ning Fan about the formation or not? Ning Fan could directly know everything in her mind. Why should she take the initiative to tell him? Very good. I have already memorized the formation. In just slightly more than 10 breaths, Ning Fan had memorized the complicated innate synthesis formation without any mistakes. This greatly surprised the Ant Lord. She had spent an entire day to memorize such a complicated formation. Isn't it a little too fast for Ning Fan to memorize it? Even if you know about the formation, you won't be able to gather all the materials. Even though you're lucky enough to obtain the main material of the synthesis, the absolute beginning fusion stone, you still lack a few other supplementary materials. Those supplementary materials are all rare and precious items that can only be found in the true world. The Ant Lord was still unwilling to give up and said sarcastically, I don't have them. I can buy them. With whom? With the heaven-reaching sect. Damn it. If third senior brother finds out that you bullied me, he certainly won't sell anything to you. The Ant Lord was furious. Wasn't the sect master of the heaven-reaching sect her third senior brother? Then I won't let him know. Ning Fan no longer talked nonsense with the Ant Lord. He set up the ancient country trading formation in the heavenly diagram world. This time, he wanted to buy a lot of things. Other than the materials needed to synthesize high-grade innate magic treasures, he also wanted to buy the few items that the giant tortoise mentioned. Thinking about those secrets that the giant tortoise had told him, Ning Fan could not help but raise his head and look at the heavenly diagram world. His gaze did not seem to be looking at the world itself at all. Instead, it was as if he was looking at some delicacies. The Ant Lord, who had a mental connection with Ning Fan, began to feel uneasy. Since their minds were connected, she naturally knew what Ning Fan wanted to do. It was obvious that Ning Fan had developed an appetite for the heavenly diagram world after listening to the gibberish of the giant tortoise. Hey, little Ant Ning, you mustn't believe that demon tortoise. I'm a dignified saint, but I've never heard that the heavenly diagram world can be eaten. How can you believe what that demon tortoise said? If you insist on going about things the wrong way, be careful not to play yourself to death. You might even drag my scattered soul to die with you. Even if you've never heard of it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. You've also seen it. That old tortoise had personally eaten a large part of the heavenly diagram world. His words still have some credibility. Ning Fan, of course, would not listen to the Ant Lord's advice. He had his own judgment. After activating the trading formation, Ning Fan did not go to buy the items immediately. Instead, he sent a few contact signals to Miss Ling, who was in the Little Mountain world. Unfortunately, the other party had not activated the ancient country trading formation yet. Thus, she did not receive Ning Fan's contact request. Ning Fan shook his head with a smile. In order to use the ancient country trading formation to contact the other party, both parties must activate the formation at the same time. The probability of this happening was too low. Thus, Ning Fan was just trying it out casually. He was already mentally prepared for the failure of the contact. I wonder if she has recovered the vitality that she lost previously. Ning Fan shook his head and cleared away the distracting thoughts in his mind. Then he connected the ancient country's trading formation to the heaven-reaching church and quickly bought all the items he needed. One had to admit that Ning Fan was very lucky. Among the supplementary materials used to synthesize innate magic treasures, the absolute fusion stone was the most precious one. It was also the only item that was prohibited from being sold by the heaven-reaching sect. If Ning Fan lacked the absolute fusion stone, he would not be able to buy it no matter what. He had already prepared all the materials, but he did not immediately begin to synthesize the high-grade innate magical treasure. First of all, to synthesize a high-grade innate artifact, one would need to prepare multiple mid-grade innate artifacts. These mid-grade innate artifacts had their own master and secondary masters. The final type of high-grade innate artifact would be closely related to the mid-grade innate artifact used as the main material. Ning Fan had not thought of what kind of magical treasure to use as the main material. Moreover, the success rate of synthesizing magical treasures was too low. Only when the timing, geography, luck, and manpower were all perfect could the highest success rate be achieved. This clearly wasn't the best place to synthesize, and the timing wasn't right either. He still needed to make some calculations and calculate an auspicious time. Thus, he put aside the matter of synthesizing magic treasures and took out the few immortal materials and pills that the giant tortoise mentioned. In his mind, he recalled what the giant tortoise had said earlier, afraid that he would miss something. "Little friend, you're asking about the secret of my powerful blood and chi? This is actually the same thing as me devouring the heavenly diagram. It's because I ate the heavenly diagram that my blood and chi became vigorous." "You said that the heavenly diagram can't be eaten?" "Nonsense. I ate it and I'm still living well." "Secret?" "Of course, there must be a secret to devouring the heavenly diagram. Other than using the power of the true martial title, I also need to make other preparations. It's not like I was born with such a huge amount of blood and chi. In the beginning, my blood and chi were still very weak, and the power of the true martial title was also very weak. At that time, I needed to make many preparations to devour the heavenly diagram. I didn't even dare to eat it raw. You're asking me why I want to eat the heavenly diagram? Sigh, this is related to my dream. I don't want to tell you, and you shouldn't ask me either. You just need to remember that I'm a tortoise with a secret. That secret is even more important than my life. Ning Fan did not care about what the old tortoise's dream was at all. He only cared about whether the method that the old tortoise told him was real or not. Even though the old tortoise swore that his method was definitely effective, Ning Fan had never tried it before. Thus, he was still a little uneasy. The sovereign heavenly diagram contains the blood of the great Tao. It's really delicious. Once you eat it, you'll definitely become addicted. I'm the most honest tortoise in the world. I've never lied to anyone. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Even though the blood of the great Tao is delicious, you can't eat too much of it. Once you eat it, your luck will be tainted and you won't be able to wash it clean. You'll suffer bad luck in the endless reincarnations. Therefore, even the Saint Fire realm and the true world don't dare to eat it recklessly. They even forbid this matter from spreading. But I'm not afraid. I don't care even if I have to face calamities and bad luck. In this life, I must bite the heavens to pieces and suck the blood of the great Tao dry. Only then can I escape from this world and swim back to my hometown. I want to return to the huge water vat of the Skanda temple. A tortoise with a dream. A tortoise that wants to go home. For a moment, Ning Fan felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity towards the old tortoise. However, after that, it felt unfamiliar. He kept having a feeling that there was something particularly familiar about the battle of the heavenly diagram. That's right. There was indeed something that felt familiar. That unlucky Great Water Emperor had been bullied by the tortoise twice. When old Wu Ba refined the water bottle for the first time, he had already killed a great water clone. This time, the old tortoise spat out a water prison again and imprisoned the great water clone. This great water emperor's fate is really incompatible with that of a tortoise. Suddenly, Ning Fan's eyes narrowed and then relaxed. He seemed to have thought of something, but it also seemed like he was just letting his imagination run wild. Is it a coincidence? Or maybe it isn't. If that's the case, then my soft-heartedness towards this old tortoise can be explained. Otherwise, even if it's troublesome to kill his clone, I would still plot against him to teach him a lesson. If that's the case, is this old tortoise's hometown in my future or in my past? Ning Fan muttered to himself. His words seemed to be a little strange. Not long after, Ning Fan cleared his mind and used the method that the old tortoise taught him to cook a hot pot with various spiritual herbs. The iron pot was temporarily refined using a special immortal ore. The spiritual herbs and the soup were steaming hot and oddly fragrant. When the soup was boiling, Ning Fan carefully peeled off a fragment of the world of the heavenly diagram and threw it into the pot. It was strange. As soon as the fragment of the world was thrown into the pot, it immediately turned into a blood clot and was slowly cooked by the soup. Cooking it in such a manner destroyed the components of the great Tao blood in the blood clot and damaged its nutrients. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Without special treatment, Ning Fan was not a monster with blood and chi. His body would directly explode and he would die if he ate the great Tao blood. Even someone as strong as the old tortoise also ate it carefully in the beginning. Even though the nutrients in the blood clot were severely damaged, Ning Fan still felt like his internal organs were burning when he swallowed the blood clot. Luckily, this kind of backlash was still within Ning Fan's control. Not long after, he digested the blood clot and his blood and qi improved significantly. The sovereign heavenly diagram can actually be eaten. The Lord Ant was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. This was completely different from her experience. Could it be that everything she knew in the past was wrong? After swallowing the blood clot, black qi suddenly rose from Ning Fan's body. That black qi was none other than his black luck. Eating the sovereign heavenly diagram and refining the great Tao blood was too heaven-defying. Of course, it would attract endless black luck to him. Needless to say, the old tortoise Zhen Wu who had eaten the sovereign heavenly diagram for so many years was certainly a turtle with bad luck. Now, the question was, would Ning Fan become a cultivator with bad luck after eating the sovereign heavenly diagram for so many years? Wasn't he already a cultivator with bad luck a long time ago? It's just that his luck was not obvious. It was so dark that he looked like a person with normal luck. However, that was not the case. He was a member of the Fu Li clan, the clan with the dirtiest luck. No matter how many colors his umbrella of luck was added to it, its essence was still extremely dark. Then, here came the question. Was the increase of black luck scary to a Fu Li demon ancestor like Ning Fan? But what was there to be afraid of? The more black luck he had, the stronger his luck would be. That was exactly what he wanted. Originally, Ning Fan already had 7 colors of his immortal luck. Now that his luck had increased tremendously, the 8th color of his immortal luck was gradually showing signs of appearing. However, it was just a sign. It was still far away for him to completely condense the 8th color of his immortal luck. It's not enough. It's still not enough. The amount of luck needed to attain the 8th color of his immortal luck was just too huge. The increase of this amount of black luck was just a drop in the ocean. I wonder if my luck can increase to the 8th color of my immortal luck after eating all of this heavenly diagram world. If that's the case, it would be an unexpected gain. However, there's one thing that I don't agree with. That old turtle kept saying how delicious this heavenly diagram world is. However, when I eat it, the taste is actually no different from duck blood boiled in the mortal world. It's just ordinary. Of course, compared to the ant soup that tasted like feces, this blood boiled in the mortal world was definitely a delicacy. Ning Fan could even drink big bowls of ant soup. Would it be difficult for him to eat duck blood boiled in the mortal world? It was impossible. While Ning Fan was devouring it, the world of the heavenly diagram world finally collapsed. In the northern heaven, the northern sea star region, there was a star sea that ran through the starry sky of the northern sea star region. Because it contained boundless time power, it was called the Time Sea by the cultivators of the northern heaven. The Lost World Palace was built in the depths of the Time Sea. There were also immortal islands with Lost World towers floating above the Time Sea. As the second round of the grand competition of the Lost World Palace drew closer, more and more cultivators arrived at the Time Sea. On this day, a young man in white robes suddenly arrived. He was riding a small dragon that was condensed from rainwater. That rain dragon was too small. It was only 3 zhang long and it looked ordinary. That young man seemed to be a rain cultivator. However, the rain intent around him also made him look ordinary. He did not seem to be an expert. The young man's body was faintly discernible with clouds. Perhaps it was because of the clouds that the young man looked ordinary. The young man sat on the rain dragon and flew close to the surface of the Time Sea. He was flipping through an old and tattered book. He looked extremely serious, as if he was deeply attracted by the content of the book. Tao Law, Sovereign Position, Source of Tao Techniques, Tao Orthodoxy. It turns out that my divine lattice is actually of a higher grade than the Tao Orthodoxy. No wonder I could easily suppress those water cultivators. There are 5 innate spirits: gods, devils, demons, ghosts, and immortals. The gods are the first of the 5 spirits, followed by the immortal spirits, devil spirits, Demon Spirits and Ghost Spirits. The young man was none other than Ning Fan. The old book he was reading was the fake Tao scripture that the sludge monster had given him. Even though it was just the fake Tao scripture, its content almost covered the entire structure of the cultivation world. It was a great theoretical book. Throughout his journey, Ning Fan's cultivation base improved too quickly. However, his Tao cultivation was too crude. Most of the time, he had to feel the stones to cross the river. He had to be careful with every step he took. Only when he read this book did he realize how many detours he had taken in the past. In the past, his heart devil was Jiha. In order not to sever his emotions when he was forming his core, he even had a scene where they were separated by life and death. Silly girl. How could I bear to hurt you? Even if you are my heart devil and I can form my core with a gentle wave of my hand, I still can't bear to do so. However, this heart devil has to be severed eventually. Do you understand? In order to exchange 10 years of innocence for you, I am willing to overturn the heavens. Do you understand? In order to keep your heart untainted, I am willing to sweep away all the dust in the world. Do you understand? In order to keep your heart devil alive, I am willing to erase my emotions, sever my intent, give up my heart and eliminate my thoughts. I am willing to go against the heavens. I will learn from the ancient heaven-defying cultivation and go against the heavens. I will not retreat even if I die 100 times. Do you understand? I don't understand. Have I seen you before? You don't need to understand. Because you are my heart devil that I can't get rid of, cough cough cough. Recalling the mushy words of love when he was young, Ning Fan's face suddenly turned red and he coughed awkwardly. So I was also like this in the past. One should know that this fake Tao scripture recorded more than 1,000 methods to retain one's heart devil and form one's core easily. If I had read this book in the past, I wouldn't have to do so many heaven-defying things and form my core in just a few days. After feeling embarrassed, Ning Fan suddenly shook his head and smiled. Actually, there was no need to feel embarrassed. It was a waste for a person to be young if he was not absurd. Now that he was reading it, he was really moved and made up his mind. Since that was the case, how could he deny the determination of a young man with his mature eyes? Ning Fan swept away the distracting thoughts and kept the fake Tao scripture. Then, he took out another ancient jade slip and sent his spirit sense into it to read it seriously. This was the item that omniscient old man gave him before he left the earth abyss. The contents of the jade slip were all the secret arts and abilities of the Heaven and Earth sect. Omniscient old man wanted to help Ning Fan cultivate these secret arts in the beginning. However, Ning Fan had to leave the earth abyss for some matters. Thus, omniscient old man simply gave up his responsibility and let Ning Fan explore and cultivate them on his own. While he was reading the jade slip attentively, a ray of fiery light suddenly broke through the waves and approached him from afar. That fiery light was none other than a fifth Nirvana Hotion fire gourd. Everyone in the world knew that Ning Fan was very interested in gourd magic treasures. When he saw that it was a gourd magic treasure, he took a second look at it. Then he retracted his gaze. This treasure was not the chi and blood gourd that he had been searching for so long. Interestingly enough, when the fire gourd saw Ning Fan looking at it, it immediately felt displeased. Then, it made a turn and attacked Ning Fan, as if it wanted to teach him a lesson. It turned out that it was a fire gourd with a spirit. Moreover, the spirit had a bad temper and it hated it the most when others looked at it with disdain. Behind the fire gourd was a scholarly cultivator who was panting heavily. He desperately chased after the gourd, but he could not catch up to it no matter how hard he tried. As soon as he saw the gourd attacking Ning Fan, the scholarly cultivator became anxious. Grandpa Gourd, I beg you, don't hurt people anymore, alright? I can't afford to pay for the medicine anymore. Pumph. The gourd snorted coldly in an extremely arrogant manner. It completely ignored the scholar's words. Then, the gourd was burning with raging flames. Its ox-chi rumbled as it smashed towards Ning Fan. Then, Ning Fan lightly caught the gourd in his hand. In an instant, all the flames were extinguished. This? So strong. The scholar's expression changed. He seemed to be shocked by Ning Fan's terrifying cultivation base. One should know that this fire gourd was not an ordinary magic treasure. Even an early shedding void realm old monster would not dare to take a strike from the gourd with his bare hands, let alone extinguishing the immortal flames of the gourd. There was only one reason why Ning Fan could do this. He was stronger than an early shedding void realm expert. At the very least, he must be at the late shedding void realm. Good. Ning Fan suddenly frowned. Logically speaking, a mere fifth nirvana post-celestial treasure was not worth his attention. And yet, there was an aura within the gourd that he didn't like, and yet was very familiar with. It was actually the chi of great sovereign luck wielding. Ning Fan would never forget this chi no matter what. Ning Fan took a deep look at the gourd in his hand. Then, he glanced at the scholar who was flying towards him and understood everything. It turned out that this scholar had been tricked by the fate wielding the arch. That was why there was a faint aura of the fate wielding the arch in his body. Within the four heavens, the fate controller Great Emperor had schemed against countless people. It wasn't strange for someone in the northern heavens to be schemed against. Ning Fan was not a person who liked to meddle in other people's business. He also did not have the kindness to save a scholar whom he met by chance from his scheme. He was curious if it was just a coincidence that the person who was schemed against by the Great Emperor of Fate appeared in the Lost World Palace's grand competition. Or could it be that the Great Emperor Master of Fate, who was far away in the southern heaven, was actually paying attention to the Lost World Palace's grand competition and had even made arrangements for it? Junior's son Liang greets Senior. I'm not afraid of Senior laughing at me. Junior's gourd is a little disobedient. It always likes to run around and hurt people. Fortunately, Senior is fine. Otherwise, I would really be too ashamed to show my face. I hope Senior can forgive me if I have offended you. The scholar said with fear and trepidation. He was only at the early crossing truth realm. When facing a old ancestor Shikong, like Ning Fan, he already needed to be careful. Moreover, he had almost hurt Ning Fan just now. He was afraid that Ning Fan would seek revenge from him. A disobedient gourd? Interesting. If that's the case, remember to keep a close eye on your magic treasures in case you accidentally hurt others again. Ning Fan looked at the scholar with a faint smile. He emphasized the word accidentally as if he was implying something. As soon as Ning Fan said that, the scholar's expression changed drastically. Just as he was about to explain himself, Ning Fan suddenly muttered to the gourd as if he had gone mad. After muttering to himself, he threw the gourd back to the scholar. Son Liang, is it? Behave yourself. Under the scholar's gloomy gaze, Ning Fan gave him a warning in a light voice and left on his dragon. Am I thinking too much? If this person sees through my scheme, he probably won't let me go, and it's even more impossible for him to return the gourd. The scholar's heart was beating like a drum. Suddenly, he thought of something and sneered. After making sure that Ning Fan had gone far away, he reprimanded the gourd. You already knew that this person is strong, didn't you? I clearly told you that you are only allowed to attack cultivators who are below the crossing truth realm. However, you purposely attacked this person and nearly caused me trouble. I should have told you not to be anxious. You must endure your hunger. Humph. The gourd seemed to only know how to snort coldly. It had a bad temper and ignored the scholar. Seeing that, the scholar also felt a headache. He tried to persuade the gourd with kind words. Grandpa Gourd, I know you are hungry and you want to eat some powerful cultivators. However, you have to endure it. Endure it, understand? If you don't listen to me, I won't be able to help you recover to a higher level. Do you want to be a postnatal magic treasure forever? Don't you want to turn back into the man-eating gourd that dominated the southern heaven? Listen to me. Eat some low-leveled cultivators first. Eat them silently. After you recover some of your level, you will eat those Shikong and Suanyen old monsters. Do it step by step. Don't be anxious. All right. The gourd remained silent for a long time. Finally, it made a sound of agreement. It seemed like it was convinced by the scholar. Seeing that the gourd was convinced, the scholar heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he brought the gourd to look for the next prey that was left alone, the man-eating gourd. It turns out that the gourd didn't want to attack me. Instead, it wanted to eat me. It sure has some guts. On the rain dragon that was moving far away, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with an undetectable coldness. However, he quickly retracted it. If it wasn't because he was a little concerned about the chi of the great Emperor Fate Master and wanted to see what would happen next, he might have already killed Sun Liang. Of course, even if he didn't do anything, Sun Liang would not live for long. With Ning Fan's attainments in the Tao of divination, it was not difficult for him to see the fate of a cultivator in the Crossing Truth realm. With just a glance, he could tell that Sun Liang's face was filled with death. He would definitely die within a month. Sun Liang was going to die because of the great Emperor Fate Master's scheme. However, I don't know what benefits the great Emperor Fate Master could gain from this and whether this matter is related to the grand competition of the Lost World Palace. Chapter 12:22. There were countless small islands on the Time Sea, but only a handful of large islands could be counted with one's fingers. Among them, there were 3 islands that were as large as the Emperor's stars. They were the 3 great palaces of the Lost World Palace. The conflicts between the Western Palace, Northern Palace, and Eastern Palace had been going on for a long time. That was also the reason why the 3 islands were located far away from each other. Apart from official business, they rarely interacted with each other. Ning Fan's destination this time was the Western Palace Island of the 3 palaces. There were more than 400 docks of different sizes on the Western Palace Island for cultivators to cross the sea. At this moment, on a remote dock, there was a young lady with red hair. She was looking at the sea with deep resentment. It was Bei Xiaoman at the Cloud Cliff dock. Stinky Zhou Ming. Rotten Zhou Ming. Why aren't you here yet? I've already waited for more than 10 days. How dare you let me down? Even though she already knew Ning Fan's real name, she still loved to call him Zhou Ming when they were alone. It was because the 2 simple words Zhou Ming contained too many memories of her and Ning Fan. Even though the Cloud Cliff dock was located in a remote area, there were still many cultivators who chose to enter the island from here. When they saw Bei Xiaoman muttering Zhou Ming while waiting for someone here, they were all shocked. What kind of person was that Zhou Ming? How could he make the 4th lady of the Lost World Palace miss him so much? Some meddlesome cultivators wanted to ask about it. However, before they could get close to Bei Xiaoman, they were stopped by a tall and sturdy stone warrior. The current stone warrior had already been modified into an immortal king realm puppet. His body was emitting an undying aura force and his expression was cold and indifferent. With his protection, those meddlesome cultivators could not get close to Bei Xiaoman. They had no choice but to dispel their curiosity and leave. There were also some who chose to stay at the Cloud Cliff dock to find out who Bei Xiaoman was waiting for. Rumor has it that the 4th lady of the Lost World Palace hates men the most. If I'm not wrong, she should be waiting for a female friend. Fellow Taoist, you're wrong. That Zhou Ming sounds more like a man. Perhaps the Lost World Palace has an important guest that they want to receive. That's why they sent the 4th lady here to wait for him. My name is Zhou Ming. Who said that Zhou Ming has to be a man? Well, I heard that the 4th lady of the Lost World Palace is engaged to the Taoist of the Water sect. She might be waiting for her fiancé here. Oh? The 4th miss of the Lost World Palace was engaged to the Taoist of the Water faction. The Water sect's Taoist had reached the Celestial King realm at such a young age. In the future, he would definitely become a celestial emperor. 4th miss is climbing up the social ladder. Seek connections? That might not be the case. I'm afraid fellow Taoist doesn't know that the 4th lady of the Lost World Palace is not an ordinary person. Perhaps, the Water sect has taken advantage of her. Amidst the discussions of the busybodies, a white-robed young man stealthily arrived on a rain dragon. The young man's cultivation base seemed ordinary, and his appearance was unfamiliar. He didn't seem to be a famous figure. The rain dragon he was riding didn't seem powerful, and it didn't seem to be a powerful mount. Therefore, everyone only glanced at the young man once before looking away. They didn't care about him. No one thought that Bei Xiaoman was waiting for such an inconspicuous gigolo. However, the reality was always unexpected. Bei Xiaoman was really waiting for this person. As soon as she saw Ning Fan, The impatience in her heart instantly vanished. Her mood turned from cloudy to sunny. She was filled with indescribable joy. How could she still remember the grudge she had for waiting for him for more than 10 days? I thought you wouldn't come? If you didn't come, I would find someone else to be my chess soldier. Bei Xiaoman snorted. The smile at the bottom of her eyes betrayed her true feelings. How could she bear to find someone else to be her chess soldier? Of course, she had to leave such a good position for Ning Fan. Good things should not flow to outsiders. I'm sorry. There was an accident that delayed me for a few days. I've made you wait for more than 10 days in vain. Ning Fan laughed. He was naturally amused by Bei Xiaoman's hypocrisy. Accident? You're injured again? Let me take a look. Bei Xiaoman felt uncomfortable as soon as she heard his words. She had long regarded Ning Fan as her gigolo. What was a gigolo? Gigolo was her sacred and inviolable private property. How could she bear to let Ning Fan get injured? She turned Ning Fan over and over again to examine him. Her small hands kept touching Ning Fan from head to toe. She did not feel that there was anything wrong with this at all. After all, she had done this with Ning Fan countless times. This level of body contact was nothing to her. However, this scene was somewhat unusual in the eyes of the passers-by. The mouths of the passers-by were wide open. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The goddess-like fourth young lady, the fiancée of the water-sex Taoist, was being so intimate with a strange man. Could this be the legendary fickleness? Fortunately, Bei Xiaoman and Ning Fan's intimacy was not too excessive. After making sure that Ning Fan was not injured, Bei Xiaoman's smile returned to her face. She brought Ning Fan to an immortal magpie carriage and left for the inner island. Only after Bei Xiaoman had left for a long time did the crowd dare to discuss this matter in a low voice. Hey, did that Taoist of the water sect who is like a heavenly deity get cuckolded? Cuckolded? What do you mean? Please explain it to me, fellow Taoist. This is a slang from my hometown. There is a legend in my hometown. It says that in ancient times, there was a cultivator who went out to visit a friend. All of a sudden, he saw a ray of green light flashing across the sky. He pinched his fingers to calculate and immediately sweated profusely. When he returned home, as expected, his Taoist companion was having fun with another unfamiliar man in bed. I understand now. I understand now. It seems like the Taoist of the water sect is about to encounter the green light from the sky. Don't you guys feel that the man who was flirting with the fourth mistress looks a little familiar? Now that fellow Taoist mentioned it, he does look a little familiar. Someone recalled something and took out a wanted poster from his storage pouch. When they compared it with the poster, they were instantly overjoyed. How could they not be happy? It turned out that the man who had been waiting for the fourth mistress for more than 10 days was the person who was wanted by the water sect. This humble Taoist was wondering why the water sect would suddenly put a wanted poster on this man's head. Now, this humble Taoist understands. I'm afraid that the Taoist of the water sect had already seen the green light from the sky. That's why he was so angry and wanted to kill this man. I'm afraid this man has already succeeded. Hee, to think that the Taoist of the water sect is such a noble and virtuous person. To think that his head has turned into a green grassland. Alas, should we kill this man and go to the water sect to claim the reward? Claim the reward? Do you have the ability to do so? Who do you think this man is? A dignified secret race was trampled by this man. Do you think you are stronger than the secret race? A cultivator called Su Kuan suddenly harumphed and interrupted the discussion of the crowd. Why did fellow Taoist Su say that? What do you mean by the secret race was trampled by this man? How come I've never heard of this before? I'm different from all of you. I'm the disciple of an immortal emperor. I have my own channels to obtain information. Although this man keeps a low profile, the immortal cultivators of the northern heaven aren't all fools. Those who are well informed have already guessed his identity. This man's identity is very complicated. Any one of them is not someone we can afford to offend. The fact that he is still alive and well despite being wanted by the water sect is proof of this. with his cultivation base, let alone flirting with the wife of a mere Taoist of the water sect. Even if he slept with the wife of an immortal emperor, I'm afraid the immortal emperor wouldn't dare to say anything. Moreover, I don't believe that a dignified Tao De true sovereign would do such a despicable thing to a woman. There must be a hidden story behind this. Hiss. Is what fellow Taoist Su said true? That man who rides the dragon is actually the rumored Tao De true sovereign. That ancient great cultivator, Zhao Jian. Everyone's expression changed drastically. How would they still dare to continue discussing about Ning Fan? They dared to talk about the affairs in the streets and laugh at the grassland on the head of the Taoist of the water sect. However, they did not dare to openly discuss an ancient great cultivator. Everyone wanted to pry some more information from Su Kuan, but Su Kuan paid no attention to them. After he cupped his fists and apologized, he actually left in a hurry and headed straight for the inner island. The cultivation circle of the northern heaven was not that big. Ever since Ning Fan created a huge ruckus in the northern heaven, the well-informed cultivators in the northern heaven had more or less received the news that Ning Fan, who was wanted by the water sect, was the great cultivator from the ancient times, Zhao Jian. He must not be provoked. It was also because Ning Fan came to Western Palace Island in such a low-profile and secretive manner. If he was a little more high-profile, countless legendary figures of the northern sky would have gone to the sea to welcome him. The story of Dao Jinjun Zhao Jian saving people had long spread throughout the northern sky, touching countless Num cultivators. The title of Tao De True Lord was also forcefully given to Ning Fan at that time. The northern heaven cultivation world had already regarded Ning Fan as the role model of the cultivators in the age of chaos and a famous figure of virtue. The funny thing was that Ning Fan himself did not know that he had gained such a nickname. If he knew about it, he would probably laugh until his internal organs bled. I can't be wrong. This person is the Tao De perfected Lord that Master has been looking for. If I tell them this news, it will certainly be a great merit. Su Kuan suppressed the excitement in his heart and went straight to the inner island. At this moment, his master was temporarily staying in one of the markets in the inner island. Su Kuan was just a life-immortal realm junior. He could not be considered as a famous person in the northern heaven. However, his master was different. His master was enlightened Tao Li, a dignified sixth tribulation immortal emperor. Moreover, because he had taken in countless disciples in the entire northern heaven, his reputation was very high and he had the nickname of peaches and plums everywhere in the northern heaven. Enlightened Tao Li was not an ordinary immortal emperor. He was an immortal emperor who had participated in the Great War in the desolate world. In other words, Ning Fan had once saved enlightened Tao Li's life in the desolate world. Ever since then, he had been grateful to Ning Fan but could not repay him. In the past, when Ning Fan appeared in the Pure Yang sect, he chased after him all the way to the sect. After that, Ning Fan appeared in the Ocean Sand sect and he chased after him all the way to the Ocean Sand sect. He had been following Ning Fan's footsteps. He wanted to see Ning Fan again and repay his kindness in the past. He wanted to see Senior Zhao Jian's glory again. Unfortunately, every time he rushed to the place where Ning Fan was, Ning Fan would always leave before him. There was nothing more regretful than this in his life. Enlightened Tao Li even suspected that Ning Fan was unwilling to accept his gratitude. That was why he left before him. Ning Fan's way of doing things was really like the ancient people and it made him admire him even more. However, the problem was that if Senior Zhao keeps avoiding him, he might not have the chance to thank Senior Zhao again in this life. That was a great cultivator from the ancient times. If he deliberately avoids a certain immortal emperor, how could this immortal emperor find him so easily? Sigh. Enlightened Tao Li let out a long sigh. At this moment, he was teaching his disciples in the hall he rented in the West Mountain Market. His sigh shocked the hundreds of disciples who were listening to him. They had never seen their master so depressed before. Why is master sighing? Could it be that the questions we asked just now were too utilitarian and made you unhappy? The disciples asked with fear and trepidation. No, I'm not sighing at you guys. I just suddenly recalled Senior Zhao. Enlightened Tao Li smiled bitterly. Senior Zhao? Which Senior Zhao? A disciple who had just entered the sect asked in confusion. Without waiting for enlightened Tao Li to answer, another disciple immediately explained. You've just entered the sect, so you might not know this. Master is thinking about Senior Zhao. This? Zhao Jian? Could it be that Senior Dao de true Lord Zhao Jian? Master actually knows such an expert. The disciple who had just entered the sect was greatly shocked. To low-level cultivators, enlightened Tao Li and the other immortal emperors were supreme existences, while Zhao Jian, an ancient great cultivator, was a legendary figure who only existed in stories. Now that he suddenly heard that his master was related to a legendary figure, this disciple was naturally shocked. I don't just know Senior Zhao. That Senior Zhao had once saved me in the desolate land and saved my life. How can such kindness be summed up with just knowing him? I've always wanted to repay Senior Zhao, but I couldn't meet him in the end. Senior Zhao doesn't do good for fame and fortune. Ancient customs exist forever. Righteousness does not die. This is Senior Zhao's true nature. If there were more kind-hearted people like Senior Zhao, there wouldn't be so many deceitful people in the cultivation world. I've worked hard for my entire life, but I'm not as free as Senior Zhao, who does good every day. If I can see Senior Zhao again, I'll die without regrets. It's a pity that I can't see him. The disciples were all moved by enlightened Tao Li's emotional words. They were all influenced by their master and seemed to have become Senior Zhao Jian's believers. Master, tell us the story of Senior Zhao saving people in the desolate land. Disciple wants to hear the story of Senior Zhao doing good in the heavenly cycle. Disciple wants to hear the story of Senior Zhao convincing people with virtue and reforming the entire Light Clan. Disciple wants to hear the story of Senior Zhao having sex with 3,000 women and ascending to the heavens. Disciple wants to hear the story of Senior Zhao punishing the 12 evil tyrants of the true world. Disciple, seeing that the topic had completely changed to Senior Zhao Jian, enlightened Tao Li was no longer depressed. His turbid eyes became bright and full of vigor. All right. If you want to hear Senior Zhao's story, I'll tell you. It's just that I've told you too many times about those stories. Today, I'll tell you a new story. The name of the story is a little long. It's called, White-Clothed and Upright in the World, Never Forget to Search for Flowers at the Ends of the World. This story is about when Senior Zhao was young. He once missed a woman. He searched for her for 10,000 miles, but in the end, he couldn't find her. 10,000 miles? To us cultivators, 10,000 miles is just a blink of an eye. Why did Senior Zhao only travel 10,000 miles to search for someone? A nosy disciple asked in confusion. You're too talkative. How can the 10,000 miles that Senior Zhao traveled be the same as the 10,000 miles that you brats understand? The world that we live in is just a speck of dust or a drop of water to cultivators of a higher realm. The 10,000 miles that Senior Zhao traveled might be billions of times further than the 4 heavens and 9 worlds combined. When he heard his disciple questioning his story, enlightened Tao Li's face immediately turned serious and felt displeased. Master, don't tell me you made up this story. The nosy disciple continued to talk back weakly. About this? This story is absolutely true. It's recorded in the ancient records. How can it be made up by Master? Teacher is like a father. If you doubt Master's character, you should receive a small punishment. I'll punish you to copy the Tao de True Monarch's 200 volumes 1,000 times. You're not allowed to use any divine abilities. You have to use your hands to copy it word by word and comprehend Senior Zhao's greatness from the book. Enlightened Tao Li's face was clearly serious, but his confidence was somewhat lacking. Because the story that he said was really just randomly made up. Even the contents of the book that he wrote were all rumors that were collected from the streets. The authenticity was still debatable. The book that you wrote has a total of 2 million words. If you copy it 1,000 times, this disciple might die. The nosy disciple wanted to cry but had no tears. He shouldn't have asked so many questions. This was great. He didn't have to do anything for the next few hundred years. He just had to copy the book. All right. Let's continue talking about Senior Zhao's story. Just as enlightened Tao Li was about to continue his lecture, he suddenly saw an extremely rude person barging into the lecture hall. He instantly became unhappy. Su Kuan, didn't you ask for leave for my lecture today? Why did you come back? Enlightened Tao Li had always disliked his disciple, Su Kuan. It was because even though this disciple's aptitude was not bad, he had a slippery personality and did not have the perseverance to cultivate. Great news! Great news! Master, guess who did I see at the Cloud Cliff Pier? I saw Senior Dao, the true monarch. What? You actually met Senior Zhao? He also came to Western Palace Island. Where is he? Quickly tell me. Enlightened Tao Li was overjoyed. For the first time, he felt that this Su Kuan was so pleasing to the eye. He was obviously a promising talent. The same thing happened in every corner of Western Palace Island. When those Northern Sky old monsters who admired Ning Fan heard that he was in Western Palace Island, all of them were extremely excited. They could not wait to visit Ning Fan right away. Considering that it would be too rude to visit Ning Fan empty-handed, they did not disturb Ning Fan immediately. Instead, they hurriedly prepared expensive gifts, afraid that the gifts would be too simple and neglect Ning Fan. Ning Fan had no idea about all of this. He rode the immortal magpie carriage and arrived at the inner island of Western Palace Island with Bei Xiaoman. The inner island was not a place that ordinary people could set foot on. Other than the disciples of the Lost World Palace, only second-step cultivators could enter this place. Bei Xiaoman had her own mansion on the inner island. She held a special meaning to the Lost World Palace. Her mansion was also surrounded by 3 layers of internal and 3 layers of external guards. These guards' cultivation bases were too low. Naturally, it was impossible for them to have information about enlightened Tao Li. Thus, they did not know that Ning Fan was the great cultivator from the ancient times, Zhao Jian. Seeing that the 4th miss had gone out for more than 10 days and actually brought back an unfamiliar man who seemed to be very intimate with him, the guard's expressions became a little strange. Everyone knew that the 4th miss had an engagement with the Taoist of the Water sect. It's not appropriate for her to bring an unfamiliar man home for no reason. A few loyal guards wanted to step forward and advise her. However, before they could get close to Bei Xiaoman, they were blocked by a tall and burly stone warrior. Don't meddle in matters that you shouldn't meddle in. Don't ask about things that you shouldn't know. Stone Warrior warned. One should know that Stone Warrior's cultivation base had skyrocketed after he returned from the Guangzhou Earth Abyss. Now, he could be considered as a prominent figure in the entire Lost World Palace. How could ordinary guards dare to ignore his warning? As such, the guards could only turn a blind eye to the matter of Bei Xiaoman bringing Ning Fan home. They could only pray in their hearts that the 4th miss would not go overboard. If she really loses her virginity before marriage, it would be hard to explain to the Water sect. Unfortunately, the heavens did not seem to hear the prayers of the guards. On this night, there was a particularly loud noise coming from the 4th miss room. It was said that a few glazed tiles had been shaken off. Unfortunately, there was a restriction around the room. The people outside could not hear the movements inside at all. Naturally, they could not confirm what was happening inside. However, those guards were not fools. Ning Fan stayed in Bei Xiaoman's room for a whole night before he came out. Moreover, the room was brightly lit throughout the night, a man and a woman staying together for a whole night. Other than having sex, was there anything else they could do? Even though no one said it out loud, all the guards firmly believed that their pure and chaste 4th miss had finally been harmed by a certain thief. The next morning, the moment Ning Fan stepped out of Bei Xiaoman's room, he could feel the resentful gazes of the guards. He felt speechless. Didn't I just play chess with Bei Xiaoman for a whole night? Why are they looking at me like I'm a thief? Fine, I am a thief. But the problem is that I really did not touch Bei Xiaoman last night. He had promised to be Bei Xiaoman's chess soldier. However, the problem was that he did not even know what a chess soldier was. As a result, he spent the entire night asking Bei Xiaoman about this matter. He even rejected her numerous attempts to make love to him. In order to explain the meaning of chess soldiers to Ning Fan, Bei Xiaoman had no choice but to play an ancient chess game called 6 Bouts with Ning Fan. It was Ning Fan's first time playing this game. Therefore, he was very unfamiliar with the rules of the game. Fortunately, his intelligence was extremely high. After familiarizing himself with the rules, he immediately became an expert in the game. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was not a genius after all. His intelligence could help him become a 6 bouts expert in a short period of time. However, he was still much weaker than those chess masters who had spent their entire lives studying 6 bouts. What surprised Ning Fan was that Bei Xiaomen was actually very good at playing 6 bouts. She did not look very smart, but her skill in 6 bouts was unusually high. It was really unbelievable. That night, Ning Fan played more than 20 games with Bei Xiaomen. However, he lost every single one of them. He could not even ask for a draw. It was not that his chess skills were terrible. It was just that Bei Xiaomen was so strong that it was against the rules and logic. Tiske, you pathetic ant, maggot, cockroach and grasshopper. Your skills are not up to par yet. Go home and practice for another 1,000 years. You played more than 20 games in a night, but you actually failed to satisfy me once. If you can't satisfy me next time, I will find someone else. After Ning Fan, Bei Xiaomen walked out of the room with dark circles under her eyes. Her face was filled with lust and dissatisfaction. Hiss! All the guards sucked in a cold breath at the same time. There was too much information in Fourth Miss words. As expected. Just as expected. Last night, Fourth Miss had already fallen into this thief's hands. Moreover, she had been tormented for more than 20 times. More than 20 times. Tormenting a young girl who had just experienced sexual intercourse for more than 20 times was not something a human would do. It was something only beasts would do. The way the guards looked at Ning Fan changed again. It was no longer the way they looked at a thief. Instead, it was the way they looked at a beast and a scumbag. Moreover, Ning Fan was not an ordinary beast. This beast had entered young Miss' body for more than 20 times. However, not a single time was enough to satisfy young Mississippi. How pitiful was young Miss. She secretly found a gigolo, but he was actually so useless. Did they misunderstand something? Ning Fan was speechless. You think too much. Let's go. Accompany me for breakfast. After that, I will bring you to meet the other chess soldiers and chess generals. Bei Xiaomen shook her head carelessly. Breakfast? Cultivators don't need to eat. What kind of breakfast are you eating? Previously, I still have the gray water. How can I be compared to the other cultivators? Previously, my body was too weak. Therefore, I ate 2 meals a day without stopping. Even though the problem of the gray water has been solved, I can't change my habit of having breakfast. Hey, cockroach, maggot, grasshopper. Do you want to have breakfast with me or not? Bei Xiaomen gave Ning Fan a disdainful look. Of course, she despised Ning Fan's chess skills. Unless Ning Fan could defeat her in chess, she would call him a cockroach, maggot, and grasshopper for the rest of her life. She would then laugh at Ning Fan's lousy chess skills. Ha! Finally, she could crush Ning Fan in one thing. This feeling is just too wonderful. It's good to be alive. Playing chess with Ning Fan really makes me happy. She decided that in the future, she would use all her time to have sex at night to play chess with Ning Fan. This kind of happiness was even more intoxicating than having sex. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.